Greetings, road warriors. Tonight our chronicle covers a stretch of asphalt that sits on the bucket list of every driver who prefers vertigo over velocity, a path where the white line is the only thing separating a 20-ton rig from a 2,000-foot drop. We're heading to the roof of Italy. We're taking on the Stelvio Pass. The engine is warm, the tanks are full, and the twilight is just beginning to bruise the sky purple over the Alps. It is that perfect time of evening when the dashboard lights flicker on, creating a cozy amber-lit cocoon against the encroaching dark. Let's be honest, trusting a GPS that says "fastest route found" while staring at a mountain range that looks like a fortress wall is a leap of faith that never quite feels safe. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're currently parked up at a rest stop, drop a comment with your location and the local time. It's always good to know where in the world the convoy is resting tonight. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. The steady rhythmic thrum of the tyres against the pavement of the Autostrada del Brennero, the A22, acts as a lullaby for the heavy machinery moving north. We are currently south of Bolzano, cruising through the Adige Valley in the autonomous province of South Tyrol. To the casual observer in a passenger car, this is just another scenic Italian highway, a vein of commerce connecting the industrial heart of Modena to the Austrian border at the Brenner Pass. But from the high vantage point of the cab, the world looks different. The Scania R-Series we're piloting tonight, pulling a fully loaded curtain-sider trailer, feels less like a vehicle and more like a ship cutting through a sea of vineyards and apple orchards. The cruise control is locked at a steady 80 km per hour, the digital tachograph ticking away the remaining driving hours like a slow metronome. There is a specific kind of peace found on the Autostrada in the early evening. The aggressive franticness of the morning rush has dissolved. The commuter traffic has thinned out, leaving the road largely to the professionals, the long haulers, the refrigerated units moving produce to Germany, and the tankers returning empty to the depots in Verona. It is a brotherhood of momentum, where a simple flash of the high beams signals a safe merge, a language of light understood across a dozen different borders. As we roll past the exit for Egna Ora, the landscape begins to offer subtle hints that the easy driving is coming to an end. The valley floor is wide here, carved out by glaciers eons ago, and now manicured into endless rows of fruit trees that blur into a singular green streak in our peripheral vision. However, on either side of this fertile corridor, the rock walls are rising, their jagged dolomitic teeth biting into the sky, their peaks already catching the snow that refuses to melt even in late spring. This is the duality of the trucking life in the Alps. The serene beauty of the valley often masks the brutal incline waiting just around the bend. We need to talk about the history of this tarmac ribbon we're about to leave. The A22 isn't just a road, it's a feat of post-war ambition. Conceived in the 1950s and largely completed by the early 1970s, the Autostrada del Brennero was designed to conquer the barrier of the Alps, turning a journey that once took days of treacherous navigating into a matter of hours. It was an engineering marvel of its time, featuring dozens of viaducts that soar over riverbeds and tunnels that burrow straight through the granite shoulders of the mountains. Driving it today, with the air suspension absorbing every imperfection, it is easy to forget that before this concrete artery existed, trade between Italy and Northern Europe was a grueling, muddy affair. But we aren't staying on the A22. The GPS, mounted to the left of the steering wheel and glowing with the soft blue hue, chimes with a new instruction. We are looking for the exit at Bolzano Sud. The indicator clicks, a crisp, mechanical sound that cuts through the low drone of the diesel engine. We check the mirrors. The convex glass reveals the long flank of the trailer, the red marker lights glowing steadily near the rear bumper. There is a car lingering in the blind spot, a small Fiat that seems unsure of its own existence, but eventually it speeds up and clears the lane. We drift right, the tyres humming a different pitch as they cross the painted lines and take the deceleration lane. The sensation of speed changes instantly. On the highway, 80 km per hour feels stationary. On the tight curl of the off-ramp, 40 feels fast. The retarder kicks in, a magnetic braking system on the drive shaft that slows the truck without us having to touch the service brakes. It's a low, moaning hum, like a distant turbine winding down, saving the brake pads for when we really need them. And believe me, where we're going to need every millimetre of brake lining we have. We pay the toll, electronically of course, the beep of the telepass box signalling our release from the high-speed network, and merge onto the distinctively named Mi-Bo, the expressway connecting Murano and Bolzano. The lanes are narrower here. The comfort of the wide shoulder is gone. We are transitioning from the international artery to the regional veins, and the traffic changes character. It's more local now. Tractors hauling farm equipment, delivery vans darting between lanes, with that distinctly Italian disregard for physics, and the occasional tourist camper van moving at a glacial pace. As we push northwest toward Murano, the sun dips lower, casting long, dramatic shadows across the valley floor. This region, South Tyrol, is a curious geographical anomaly. Despite being firmly within the borders of Italy, the architecture, the food, and the language are distinctly Austrian. You're just as likely to be greeted with a Grüß Gott as a Buongiorno. This cultural hybridity is a remnant of the First World War, after which the region was annexed by Italy. It creates a unique visual texture for the driver. Tyrolean chalets with flower boxes overflowing with geraniums sitting next to classic Italian piazzas. It's a place where you can eat schnitzel and drink espresso in the same sitting, and nobody bats an eye. Inside the cab, the atmosphere is tranquil. The Scania's interior is a testament to Swedish ergonomics. The wraparound dashboard puts every control within arm's reach, creating a cockpit that feels more like an airliner than a truck. We reach for the thermos in the cup holder. Coffee, black, lukewarm by now, but still caffeinated enough to keep the eyes sharp. The seat, an air-suspended throne, breathes with the road, dampening the jolts of the expansion joints on the Mi-Bo expressway. There is a story often told by the older drivers, the ones who were hauling freight through here in the days before power steering and synchronized gearboxes. They talk about the clutch leg, a physical ailment developed from double clutching up and down these valleys for 12 hours a day. In those days, missing a gear on an incline didn't just mean stalling. It meant stopping, chocking the wheels and praying the driveshaft didn't snap as you tried to get moving again. Modern technology has smoothed out those rough edges. Our transmission is an automated manual, a computer brain that decides the perfect millisecond to shift, matching the engine revolutions to the road speed with a precision no human can consistently replicate. It makes the job safer, certainly, but sometimes in the quiet of the drive you can't help but feel a little disconnected from the machine, like a passenger in your own office. The Mi-Bo expressway ends and the road designation changes to the SS38, the Strada Statale 38. This is the road, the one that leads to the monster. The valley begins to squeeze in on us. The vast apple orchards of the lower Adige are replaced by narrower patches of green, fighting for space between the river and the cliffs. The mountains ahead are no longer a backdrop, they are the destination. They loom, massive and dark, a wall of rock that seems impenetrable. We pass through a tunnel, the sodium lights flashing rhythmically over the windshield. Amber! 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 The sound of the engine amplifies, bouncing off the concrete walls, a guttural roar that reminds us of the power sitting under the floorboards. 500 horsepower. It sounds like a lot, and on the flat it is. But gravity is a cruel mistress, and for every degree of incline she demands a tithe of torque. We are hauling 22 tons of industrial machinery parts, dense, heavy, and unforgiving. The weight distribution is good, centered over the drive axles, but weight is weight. When the road tilts up, physics will try to pull us backward. Exiting the tunnel, the air seems fresher, cooler. We can see the signs for Prato allo Stelvio. The name itself carries a weight in the trucking community. It is the gateway, the base camp before the assault on the summit. The road is still relatively flat here, winding gently along the river Adige, but the grade is subtly increasing. You can feel it in the throttle response. The truck holds its gear a little longer. The turbocharger whistles a little louder as it forces more air into the cylinders to maintain speed. We're slowly leaving the valley floor, rising metre by metre, almost imperceptibly. To our left, the Ortler Alps dominate the skyline. Mount Ortler, the highest peak in the Eastern Alps outside the Bernina range, stands like a sentinel at over 3,900 metres. Its glaciers are glowing a soft pink in the dying light, a stark contrast to the deep green of the pine forests at its base. It is beautiful, undeniably, but beauty in this line of work is often a warning. High peaks mean deep valleys, and deep valleys mean steep roads. The scenery is a distraction we can enjoy only in brief glances. The eyes must constantly scan the road ahead, looking for the brake lights of a slowing car, the erratic movement of a cyclist, the sudden narrowing of the lane. We approach the village of Foresta. The road cuts right through the community, past the brewery that has stood there for over 150 years. The smell of hops and malt briefly replaces the scent of diesel. It's a reminder of the civilization we're leaving behind. From here on out, the towns will get smaller, the roads tighter, and the margin for error slimmer. Let's check the instrument cluster. Oil temperature is stable at 90 degrees Celsius. Air pressure in the brake tanks is fully charged at 12 bar. The AdBlue gauge is showing 3/4 full, essential for keeping emissions legal, though the truck will derate the engine power if it runs dry, turning our powerful hauler into a limping turtle. Everything is in the green. The machine is ready. The question is, are we? There is a psychological shift that happens when you leave the highway and commit to a mountain pass. On the highway, your mind can wander slightly. You can think about what you'll have for dinner, or replay an argument you had 3 years ago. But on the SS38, heading toward the Stelvio, the focus must narrow. The world shrinks to the width of the windshield. The radio volume gets turned down. The seat back is adjusted to a more upright position. The relaxed slump of the highway cruiser is replaced by the alert posture of the mountain climber. We are passing the turnoff for Murano now, leaving the spa town and its manicured gardens to the east. Our path lies west, deeper into the Venosta Valley. The sun has officially dipped below the peaks, and the valley is plunged into a blue-hour shadow. The headlights cut a bright swath through the gloom, illuminating the reflectors on the guardrails. Those guardrails look reassuringly sturdy here, thick steel beams bolted into concrete. Higher up, we know they will become mere suggestions, flimsy strips of metal or in some places jagged stones that offer no protection at all against the void. The traffic is thinning out even more. Most heavy trucks have stopped for the night or taken the easier, longer routes around the mountains. We are pushing on. There is a deadline and there is the challenge. The road stretches out ahead, a grey ribbon disappearing into the dark folds of the Alps. We've left the comfort of the autostrada far behind. The fast lane is a memory. From here to the summit, it is just us, the machine and the mountain. The climb is coming. The truck rolls steadily through the darkening Val Venosta, the massive windshield framing a landscape that feels increasingly claustrophobic. The mountains on either side are no longer distant scenery. They are walls, pressing in, funneling the road and the river into a shared, narrow path. We are tracing a route that existed long before diesel engines and air brakes, a path carved not just by nature, but by the will of an empire. To understand the asphalt beneath our 18 wheels, we have to look back 2 centuries. The road we are driving, the SS38, leading up to the Stelvio Pass, is not a modern convenience. It is an artifact of the Austrian Empire. In the early 19th century, the geopolitical map of Europe looked vastly different. The Congress of Vienna in 1815 had just awarded the region of Lombardy to the Austrian Empire, expanding its territory south of the Alps. However, there was a strategic problem. The connection between the capital in Vienna and its new Italian province was severed by these very mountains. Emperor Francis III of Austria needed a secure, direct link. He needed a road that could move armies, artillery and trade goods without passing through foreign territory or relying on passes that were snowed in for 8 months of the year. He turned to an engineer named Carlo Donegani, a man whose vision for gradients and switchbacks would define Alpine engineering for generations. Construction began in 1820. Just think about that for a moment as we sit here in our heated cab with power steering. 200 years ago, thousands of labourers were hacking at this granite with pickaxes and black powder, battling avalanches, freezing temperatures and thin air to carve a ledge wide enough for a horse-drawn carriage. It took them 5 years. By 1825, the road was open. It was an instant marvel, dubbed the Queen of Alpine Roads. The design was so mathematically precise that the route remains largely unchanged today. The steepness was calculated carefully to allow horse team to pull heavy cannons without exhaustion. That constant gradient, averaging around 7% but spiking higher in the turns, is exactly what we are about to face. The genius of Donegani is the reason we can even attempt this in a modern semi-truck. If the grade were any steeper, our drive wheels would lose traction, any shallower, and the road would need to be twice as long to gain the same elevation. As we continue west through Cilandro, the historical weight of the road feels tangible. We pass old stone mile markers, weathered and mossy, standing like silent sentinels from the imperial era. The architecture in the villages reflects this Austrian heritage perfectly. The church steeples are sharp, onion-domed cupolas covered in copper that has oxidized to a pale green. The houses are sturdy, timber-frame structures with wide eaves designed to shed heavy snowfall. We are in Italy, yes, but the soul of this valley is Tyrolean. Let's talk about the technical challenge of this specific stretch. We are approaching the town of Prato allo Stelvio, the northern gateway to the pass. The altitude here is roughly 900 meters above sea level. The summit is at 2,757 meters. That means in the next 25 kilometers of driving, we have to lift 22 tons of cargo vertically by nearly 2 kilometers. It is a massive energy equation. The potential energy we gain on the way up will have to be dissipated as heat by our brakes on the way down. This is why mountain driving is fundamentally a game of thermal management. You're managing the heat in your coolant on the ascent and the heat in your brake drums on the descent. The Scania's computer is already sensing the slight increase in load. The transmission shifts down a gear from 12th to 11th, keeping the engine in its sweet spot. that green band on the tachometer between 100 and 400 RPM, where the torque is maximum and fuel efficiency is optimal. The V8 engine, if we were lucky enough to have the big 16-litre block, would barely notice this introductory grade. But we're running the more common fleet spec inline 6. It's a workhorse, reliable and efficient, but it doesn't have the brute force to ignore gravity. We have to work with it, anticipating the terrain. We pass a small roadside shrine, illuminated by a flickering electric candle. These are common in the Alps, often marking spots where travellers met unfortunate ends, or where locals give thanks for safe passage. In the winter of 1836, just a decade after the road opened, a massive avalanche wiped out a section of the route, burying a team of maintenance workers. The mountains are indifferent to human engineering. They tolerate the road, but they do not accept it. Every winter, the pass is buried under meters of snow, reclaiming the territory until the ploughs fight it back in late May. We're lucky to be driving this in the summer season. If it were November, the gates at Trafoi would be locked tight, and we'd be taking the long detour through Switzerland or the Brenner. Approaching Prato, the valley floor widens briefly, a final breath before the constriction. The village is quiet, the shop windows dark. A few streetlights cast pools of yellow light on the damp pavement. We slow down to the speed limit, 50 kilometers per hour. Speed enforcement in these villages is strict. The local municipalities use hidden speed cameras, grey boxes tucked behind bushes or mounted on utility poles. Getting a ticket here is expensive, but the real cost is the points on your commercial license. A professional driver protects their license like a surgeon protects their hands. Navigating the roundabout in the centre of Prato requires a wide swing. We hug the left curb on the approach, then cut hard right, watching the trailer tyres in the mirror. They scrub sideways slightly, the rubber protesting against the asphalt. This is off-tracking, the geometry where the rear wheels follow a tighter path than the front wheels. In a car, you barely notice it. In a 16-metre-long combination vehicle, it's the difference between clearing a corner and taking out a lamppost. We clear the roundabout with inches to spare, the rear bumper swinging out wide, just missing a decorative flower planter. Nice and easy, we murmur to the empty cab. Self-talk is a common habit among long haulers. It keeps the mind engaged, vocalizing the hazards to make them real. Leaving Prato, the signpost is unmistakable. Passo dello Stelvio, open. Below it, a warning sign shows a truck silhouette with a length restriction. Officially, vehicles over 10.5 metres are discouraged or prohibited without special permits or local necessity. But we have a delivery for the maintenance station near the summit, a load of specialised generator parts that can't be flown in. We are legal, but just barely. The road designation changes again. We are now truly on the ramp. The white centre line is present, but the lanes feel narrower than the standard 3.5 metres. The shoulders have vanished, replaced by drainage ditches on the right and a stone wall on the left. The trees are pressing in close now, tall Norway spruces and larches. Their branches form a tunnel overhead, blocking out the stars. It feels intimate, almost secretive. The headlights catch the eyes of a fox darting into the underbrush. Wildlife is a real hazard here. Hitting a deer with the passenger car is a disaster. Hitting one with a truck usually just results in a broken bumper and a lot of paperwork, but the sudden evasive manoeuvre is what kills you. You never swerve for an animal in a truck. It sounds heartless, but swerving puts the rig in the ditch or into oncoming traffic. You brake hard, you hold the wheel straight, and you hope the animal moves. We can feel the Emperor's wish taking shape beneath the wheels. The road begins to curl, tracing the contours of the Trafoi Valley. This lower section is deceptive. It winds gently, lulling you into a false sense of security. The grades are moderate, maybe 4 or 5%. The truck hums along happily in 9th gear, but we know what's coming. We have studied the maps. We have heard the stories in the truck stops from drivers who came down with their brakes smoking and their knuckles white. There is a rhythm to driving these approach roads. You scan the distance for oncoming headlights. If you see a glow around a blind curve, you lift off the throttle immediately. Meeting another truck or a bus on one of the narrow sections ahead is a logistical nightmare. Someone has to back up, and backing up a trailer on a winding mountain road in the dark is a skill that separates the masters from the apprentices. We pray for an empty road. The temperature gauge on the dashboard shows the outside air dropping. It was 18 degrees Celsius in the valley, it is now 14. We are climbing. The air is getting thinner, cooler. We crack the window just a sliver. The smell of pine resin and damp earth floods the cab, crisp and clean. It's a welcome change from the recirculated air conditioning. As we round a long, sweeping left-hand curve, the trees briefly part, and we get our first glimpse of the challenge ahead. Far up the valley, tiny pinpricks of light can be seen moving on the mountain face. Those are cars thousands of feet above us crawling along the rock wall. It looks impossible, like ants marching up a vertical pane of glass. That is where we are going. The wall of 48, the 48 hairpin turns on the northern face, awaits us. But first, we must navigate the final stretch of the valley floor, where the incline truly begins to bite, and the engine's easy hum will turn into a laborious growl. The road surface changes slightly beneath us, the vibration travelling up through the steering column. We've crossed an invisible threshold. The gentle meandering of the Venosta Valley is behind us, and the true ascent has begun. The S-curves are no longer lazy, sweeping gestures. They are tightening, demanding more input from the wheel, more attention from the eyes. We are passing through the hamlet of Gomagoi. It is a pinch point in the valley, a strategic chokehold where two rivers meet. Looming out of the darkness to our right is a structure that commands respect, the ruins of Fort Gomagoi. Built by the Austro-Hungarians in 1860, this fortress was designed to lock down the road against Italian invasion. It's a grim, stone-faced block with narrow firing slits, a reminder that this road was not built for tourists or truckers, but for soldiers. In the First World War, this was the logistical lifeline for the front. Every shell, every loaf of bread, and every replacement soldier had to pass through this exact bottleneck. Driving past it in a 40-ton truck, you can almost feel the phantom gaze of sentries checking your papers. As we clear the fortress, the road tilts upward aggressively. The gradient jumps from a manageable 4% to a stubborn 7%. The truck reacts instantly. The momentum we carried from the flatlands bleeds away. The speedometer needle begins a slow, steady fall. 60, 55, 50. The automated transmission computer, sensing the increased load and the rapid deceleration, makes a decisive move. It skips a gear, dropping straight from 10th to 8th. The engine revs flare, the needle jumping to Sasto's 700 RPM. A deep guttural roar fills the cab as the turbocharger spools up to maximum pressure, forcing compressed air into the combustion chambers. Then we hear it, the distinct, rushing whoosh of the viscous fan clutch engaging. For those not familiar with heavy diesel mechanics, the cooling fan on a semi-truck isn't always spinning at full speed. It sits on a clutch filled with a temperature-sensitive silicone fluid. When the engine coolant gets hot enough, usually around 95 degrees Celsius, the fluid expands, locking the fan hub to the engine pulley. Suddenly, a massive plastic blade the size of a trash can lid starts spinning at 2000 RPM. It sounds like a jet engine taking off under the hood. It's a parasitic load, stealing about 30 to 40 horsepower just to spin the air. But right now, shedding heat is more important than raw power. That roar is the sound of the engine protecting itself. We're now climbing in earnest toward Trafoi. The valley floor has dropped away. To our left, the ground falls off into the deep gorge of the Trafoi stream. In the dark, we can't see the bottom, only the black void and the faint white foam of the water rushing over rocks far below. The guardrail here is just a single strip of galvanized steel, looking woefully inadequate against the mass of our vehicle. This section of the drive requires a specific driving technique. Progressive shifting is out the window. Now we're driving by the pyrometer. This gauge measures the exhaust gas temperature, EGT. If we lug the engine, that is, let the RPMs drop too low while pushing the throttle hard, the EGTs will skyrocket, potentially melting the turbo or cracking the exhaust manifold. We have to keep the RPMs high to keep the coolant flowing and the exhaust gases moving. It feels counterintuitive to scream the engine at low speeds, but it is the only way to survive the climb without boiling over. There is a story shared among the heavy-haul drivers who run the chaotic routes of the Alps. They talk about the stall. It's a nightmare scenario. A rookie driver, maybe hauling timber or stone, misjudges a shift on this section between Gomagoi and Trafoi. He tries to grab a gear, misses, and in the panic, loses his momentum. The truck stops dead on the 9% grade. The air brakes hold him, but he can't get moving again. The clutch burns out trying to slip the friction plate against the gravity of the slope. He sits there, stranded in the dark, blocking the only road up the mountain, until a heavy wrecker can come from Bolzano to winch him up. It's a humiliation that ends careers. We keep our foot steady. The throttle is not a switch, it's a rheostat. We are feeding just enough fuel to maintain 35 kilometers per hour. Any faster, and we risk overheating. Any slower, and we risk losing the turbo boost. It is delicate balance, a conversation between the driver's right foot and the engine's electronic control unit. The darkness outside is profound. The headlights cut a tunnel through the night, illuminating the trunks of ancient larch trees that line the road. Occasionally the beams sweep across a wooden crucifix or a small shrine nailed to a tree, silent witnesses to the travellers who have passed this way for centuries. The isolation is palpable. Down on the autostrada, you are never truly alone. There are always other taillights, gas stations, the glow of distant cities. Here, there's nothing but the road, the rock, and the machine. We approach a narrow bridge crossing a tributary stream. The sign indicates a width restriction. We drift to the centre of the road, claiming both lanes. This is standard procedure on these mountain passes. You cannot drive a semi-truck politely here. If you hug your side of the white line, your trailer wheels will drop into the drainage ditch or clip the rock face. You have to command the road. If a car were coming the other way right now, they would have to stop and back up. Fortunately, at this hour, the pass is deserted. The air inside the cab is getting warmer despite the cool mountain air outside, a result of the engine heat radiating through the floor. We switch the climate control to pull in fresh air. It smells of damp stone and pine needles, a sharp metallic scent that clears the sinuses. As we grind upward, the GPS shows the squiggly line of the road ahead straightening out briefly. We're approaching the village of Trafoi itself. This is the last outpost of civilization before the summit. The name Trafoi comes from the Latin tres fonte, meaning 3 fountains, referencing the holy springs found nearby. It has been a place of pilgrimage long before it was a ski resort. In the winter, this is a bustling hub of skiers and tourists, but tonight it is a ghost town. The hotels are dark, their shutters closed tight. We lift off the throttle as the speed limit drops for the village. The fan clutch disengages with the sudden drop in noise, leaving us with the smooth mechanical rhythm of the pistons. The sudden quiet is startling. We roll through the empty street, the sound of our tyres echoing off the building facades. A solitary street lamp illuminates a fountain in the town square, the wire splashing endlessly into a stone basin. Passing through Trafoi is the mental marker. Until now, if something went wrong, a mechanical failure, a sudden illness, we could have turned around or pulled over in a lay-by. But beyond Trafoi, the road changes character completely. There are no lay-bys, there are no turning circles. Once we leave the village and hit the first hairpin of the main ascent, we're committed. There is no way down but up. We check the mirrors one last time in the village light. The trailer looks secure. The straps on the cargo are tight. We glance at the dashboard. No warning lights. The transmission is in manual mode now. We aren't going to let the computer shift for us anymore. On the switchbacks ahead, a mid-corner shift could be disastrous, causing a momentary loss of drive just when we need it most. We select 7th gear. The engine growls in agreement. The village recedes in the mirrors, swallowed by the night. The road narrows again. The trees are starting to look different, shorter, scrubbier. We're climbing out of the biological zone where the forest feels like a blanket, and entering the zone where it feels like a desperate cling to life. The incline bites harder. The grade hits 9%, then briefly 10%. The truck slows, settles, and digs in. We are leaving the valley floor for good. The wall is waiting. The world outside the cab is undergoing a transformation, a slow violence of geography where the hospitable earth gives way to the indifferent stone. We're climbing past the 350-metre mark, and the dense protective canopy of the spruce forest is beginning to fracture. In the trucking world, we talk a lot about blind spots, those dangerous areas around the vehicle where you can't see a compact car hiding near your fuel tank. But up here, the blind spot is the landscape itself. As the trees thin out, the darkness seems to expand. Down in the valley, the trees reflected our headlights, creating a corridor of light that felt contained and safe. Now, when the beams sweep around a left-hand bend, they often hit nothing at all, just a cone of illuminated mist fading into a black void. It creates a sensation of floating, of being untethered from the ground, which is a deeply unsettling feeling when you're responsible for 22 tons of steel and cargo. We are entering what ecologists call the Krummholz zone, or crooked wood. It's the battle line between biology and geology. The majestic larches we saw near Trafoi have shrunk. They are gnarled, stunted warriors, twisted into impossible shapes by the weight of winter snows and the relentless Alpine wind. They cling to the roadside like desperate spectators, leaning away from the slope. Seeing them in the peripheral vision is a stark reminder of the forces at play here. If a tree with roots deep in the bedrock struggles to stand, a top-heavy truck on rubber tyres must be very, very careful. The engine note has changed again. Listen closely. There is higher pitch underlying the diesel rumble, a sharp, consistent whistle. That is the turbocharger working overtime. As we climb, the air density decreases. There are fewer oxygen molecules in every cubic metre of air. To maintain the same power output, the turbo has to spin faster to compress that thin air into the engine cylinders. The truck's computer, the ECU, is making thousands of calculations per second, adjusting the fuel injection timing and the variable geometry of the turbine vanes to compensate for the altitude. We are asking a machine designed for sea-level highways to perform like a mountain goat. The transition is complete. We round a sharp bend near the Weissenot overlook, and suddenly the vegetation is gone. The windshield is filled not with branches but with the raw, jagged texture of the Ortler Massif. The rock face looms over the road, a vertical wall of dolomite and limestone that seems to glow faintly in the starlight. This is the skeleton of the earth, exposed and bare. Without the trees to dampen the sound, the acoustic environment shifts. The noise of the truck reflects hard off the cliff face on our left. We can hear the distinct clack, clack, clack of the tyre treads gripping the asphalt, and the hiss of the air suspension adjusting the ride height as the trailer leans into the corners. It is a harsh, industrial soundscape, amplified by the silence of the high mountains. We're now approaching the lower section of the famous switchbacks. The Stelvio is renowned for its 48 numbered turns on the northern side, counting down from the top. But the count actually picks up here, in the lower approaches. We see a stone marker on the side of the road. Tornante 46 Est. Turn for S. It's a tight 180-degree hairpin that swings us back to the right. Navigating a hairpin without trees is a visual challenge. When there are trees, you can judge the curvature of the road by the line of the trunks. Without them, in the pitch black, depth perception becomes tricky. You have to trust the white lines and the reflective posts. We slow the rig down to a crawl, 15 kilometers per hour. We hug the outer edge of the lane, putting the steer tyres perilously close to the drop-off to swing the nose wide. We watch the mirror. The trailer pivots, the rear axles scrubbing sideways, cutting the corner close to the apex. If there were a tree there, we might clip it. But here, the apex is just a pile of loose scree and rock. There is a historical weight to this barren landscape. In the 19th century, when the road was new, travellers wrote about the terrifying desolation of this section. They weren't used to seeing the world so stripped back. To the romantic poets and painters of that era, the high Alps were a place of sublime terror. Driving a truck through it, you understand what they meant. There is a beauty here, but it is a cold, indifferent beauty. It demands respect. You don't conquer this mountain, you negotiate with it. We need to talk about the Jake brake, or the engine brake. On this steep, exposed grade, it is our best friend. We have the switch set to stage 2 of 3. When we lift off the throttle entering these treeless curves, the engine brake engages. It alters the timing of the exhaust valves, effectively turning the engine into a giant air compressor that absorbs energy rather than creating it. It produces a distinct staccato growl that echoes off the canyon walls. In many residential areas, you'll see signs saying no engine braking due to the noise. But up here, where the only residents are marmots and eagles, we let it sing. It saves the service brakes from overheating, keeping them cool for the emergency we hope never happens. As we climb higher, the outside temperature gauge drops to 9 degrees. We can see patches of old snow in the crevices of the rocks, dirty and compacted, leftovers from the winter that never fully leave these shadows. This is the permanent cryosphere. The road is dry tonight, thankfully. If it were raining, this altitude would be the transition zone where rain turns to sleet or black ice. Black ice on a mountain pass is the stuff of nightmares, an invisible, frictionless layer that renders steering wheels and brakes useless. We instinctively check the thermometer again. Safe. For now. The isolation hits you harder here. Down in the trees, you felt like you were driving through a forest. Now, you feel like you're driving on the surface of the moon. The headlights illuminate the grey retaining walls that shore up the road. ancient stonework laid by hand, reinforced with modern concrete. These walls are the only thing keeping the road from sliding into the abyss. You can see the layers of repair, a patchwork quilt of engineering spanning 2 centuries. We pass a small waterfall cascading down the rock face, the water splashing onto the shoulder of the road. In the winter, this freezes into a massive icicle that hangs over the asphalt like a sword of Damocles. Tonight, the mist from the falls drifts across the windshield, forcing us to trigger the wipers for a single sweep. The rubber blades squeak against the glass, a sudden human sound in the vast emptiness. There's a specific anecdote about a driver named Giovanni, a legend in the South Tyrolean trucking circles. Years ago, before cell phones, he broke a drive shaft right here, just above the tree line. It was February. He didn't have an auxiliary heater. To survive the night until the plough came in the morning, he had to burn his cargo manifests and the wooden pallets in the cab to keep warm. He made it, but he never drove the pass again. It's a story that plays in the back of your mind as you look at the bars of signal on your phone. 1 bar, LTE. It's enough to send a distress signal, but let's hope we don't have to test the response time of the mountain rescue team. The road straightens briefly between turns 44 and 43. We take the opportunity to scan the instrument cluster. The oil pressure is slightly lower than normal, a side effect of the hot oil and the lower engine RPMs, but still within the safe range. The fuel consumption meter is horrific, reading something like 150 litres per 100 kilometres. We are burning diesel at an industrial rate to fight gravity, but that's the price of admission. Looking up through the top of the windshield, we can see the silhouette of the mountains against the starry sky. The peaks are jagged, sharp, distinct lines that look like they were cut with a knife. We're getting closer to the roof. The lack of vegetation has opened up the sky. The Milky Way is visible, a band of diamond dust stretching directly overhead. It's a view that people pay thousands of dollars to see from a hotel balcony. We are seeing it from the office window for free, accompanied by the smell of diesel and the rumble of the gearbox. The next hairpin approaches. Turn 43. It looks tighter than the last one. The rock face on the left crowds the road, pushing us toward the edge. We can see the drop-off clearly now, a sheer vertical descent into the darkness where the trees used to be. The guardrail is low, barely knee-high. It would trip a person, but it wouldn't stop a truck. We guide the Scania gently, respectfully around the bend. The tyres bite. The chassis groans. We're in the gauntlet now. We are crawling now, the speedometer registering a pace that a motivated cyclist could beat. The GPS indicates we're approaching a section that requires absolute precision, a cluster of structures that cling to the mountainside like barnacles on the hull of a ship. While the main village of Trafoi is technically behind us in the valley floor, the Trafoi designation extends up the mountain, encompassing a series of historic road menders' houses known as cantoniera, and the occasional roadside inn that has stood here since the days of the Habsburgs. We're entering one of these tight clusters now, a hamlet of the climb, that feels less like a road and more like driving through someone's living room. The asphalt here is patched and scarred, but the edges of the road are lined with the original granite cobblestones laid in the 1820s. These stones, known as San Pietrini, are beautiful to look at but treacherous for traction. In the rain, they become slick as oil. Tonight, dry and cold, they simply rumble beneath the tyres, sending a distinct jittery vibration through the chassis that rattles the keys hanging from the ignition. This particular bottleneck is created by 2 ancient buildings squeezing the road from both sides. On the left, a weathered stone structure with wooden shutters painted a fading red. On the right, a high retaining wall that supports a small terrace. The gap between them is barely wide enough for two modern SUVs to pass. For us, it is a single-lane operation. We claim the centre, straddling the white line. Historical context is seeping out of the mortar here. These cantoniera houses were built to house the road maintenance crews who lived on the pass year-round. In the 19th century, their job was to keep the mail coaches moving. They would shovel snow by hand, spread gravel for traction, and offer shelter to travellers caught in storms. Today, many are private residences or holiday rentals, but they still serve as critical landmarks for drivers. When you see the red house, you know you're setting up for the Rocca Bianca section. A particularly nasty set of turns where the gradient spikes to nearly 12%. The truck mirrors are the stars of this show. We lean forward in the seat, craning our neck to check the West Coast mirror on the right side. The clearance between our fuel tank and the corner of the stone building is measured in centimetres. We can see the reflection of the building's rough plaster sliding past, dangerously close. If we turn the wheel too early to set up for the next bend, the trailer will cheat and scrape the wall. If we turn too late, the tractor's nose will swing into the rock face on the opposite side. Watch the tail, we whisper. It's a mantra. The rear of the trailer is a pendulum. As we steer hard left to clear the building, the rear swing-out moves right. We hold our breath as the red marker light on the trailer bumper sweeps past a copper drain pipe on the building's corner. It clears. Just. The human element of this road is often hidden behind these shutters. The people who live here possess a unique kind of resilience. Imagine trying to sleep while 1,000-horsepower engines roar past your bedroom window all night. Yet, there is a symbiotic relationship. In the winter, when the pass is closed and the silence returns, the isolation must be crushing. The drivers bring the world to them, the noise, yes, but also the supplies, the connectivity. We pass a window where a blue television light flickers. Someone is awake, watching the late news, oblivious to the 22 tons of cargo inching past their flower boxes. Once through the bottleneck, the road opens up slightly, but the relief is short-lived. We are immediately confronted with the tactile reality of the road surface. The transition from the smooth modern asphalt to sections of older, rougher paving is jarring. This changing texture communicates directly through the steering wheel. A modern truck like this Scania has electric over hydraulic steering, which dampens some of the feedback. But on the Stelvio, you can still feel the grain of the road. It tells you about grip levels. Smooth and shiny usually means polished and slippery. Rough and grey means good bite. We need to talk about the transmission logic in these tight, urban-like squeezes. The automated gearbox is brilliant on the highway, but here it can get confused. It senses the slow speed and might try to upshift to save fuel, only to realise there is zero torque available, causing it to fumble for a lower gear. This momentary hesitation, clunk, pause, clunk, causes the truck to lurch. To prevent this, we have the transmission locked in manoeuvring mode. This limits the throttle response and holds the gear aggressively, giving us fine control without the computer second-guessing our inputs. It's like walking a large dog on a short leash. You want total control, not efficiency. As we leave the cluster of buildings, the darkness rushes back in, heavier than before. We have navigated the architectural choke point, but the psychological effect lingers. Passing through that narrow gap emphasised just how massive this machine is compared to the environment. We are an intruder here, a giant squeezing through a door frame built for a dwarf. The wall of 48 is looming above us now, invisible in the dark but felt in the increasing pitch of the engine. But first, we have to clear the Weser knot, or white knot, a rocky outcrop that serves as a natural pedestal for the next leg of the climb. The road wraps around it in a long, agonizing arc. We can see the headlights of a fellow traveller far above, a tiny pair of eyes looking down at us. It's a sobering perspective. That is where we will be in 20 minutes, if the engine temperature holds, and if our nerves don't fray. The road ahead is no longer a road in the traditional sense. It is a ladder built of asphalt and granite. We have cleared the lower, sprawling approaches and the tight squeeze of the Trafoi settlements, and now we stand at the foot of the main event. In the darkness, the mountain face above us doesn't look like a slope. It looks like a wall, etched with the faint, zigzagging traces of the guardrails reflecting the starlight. This is the beginning of the relentless grind, the section where the famous 48 hairpin turn stop being individual obstacles and merge into a singular, rhythmic entity of engineering. Although we have already ticked off the first few numbers in the count, passing turns 48 through 43 in the lower valley, those were the warm-up acts. They were spaced out, allowing the engine to breathe and the transmission to find a higher gear between bends. But here, the geometry tightens. The straights between the turns shorten drastically. We are entering the zone where the Austrian engineers of the 1820s had to get creative to gain altitude. They stacked the road upon itself, layer by layer, like piping icing onto a cake. We approach turn 40. The sign is clear. Tornante 40A. The blue metal square is scarred by stickers from motorcycle clubs and bicycle races, a testament to the cult status of this asphalt. But for us, it is a warning. The turn is a sharp right-hander, banking steeply upward. We initiate the procedure. This is a dance we will repeat dozens of times in the next hour, a choreography of man and machine that allows no deviation. First, the setup. We drift the tractor unit all the way to the left, crossing the solid white line until the driver's side steer tyre is rumbling on the very edge of the pavement, just inches from the retaining wall. We need every centimetre of radius. Second, the downshift. We manually click the paddle shifter, dropping from 5th to 3rd gear. The engine revs rise, the turbo whistles a high-pitched protest. We need the torque now, before the turn, not halfway through it. Third, the turn-in. We wait. We wait longer than feels comfortable. If you turn too early in a long wheelbase vehicle, the trailer off-tracks, cutting the corner and dragging its tyres, or worse, its undercarriage, over the inside apex. We wait until the corner of the retaining wall is almost perpendicular to our shoulder, then we crank the wheel hard right, hand over hand. The steering box groans under the load. Finally, the exit. As the cab swings around and faces the uphill straight, we can't just hammer the throttle. We have to watch the mirror. The trailer is still negotiating the bend, its rear axles pivoting around the stone marker. We feather the fuel, gently pulling the weight through the arc until the trailer straightens out. Only then do we commit to the power. This repetition, setup, downshift, turn, watch, accelerate, becomes hypnotic. It is a physical workout. Even with hydraulic power steering, the constant lock-to-lock manoeuvring engages the shoulders and the core. Back in the days of manual steering, drivers would reach the summit with their arms burning and their shirts soaked in sweat. There is a saying among the old-timers, the Stelvio doesn't just test your engine, it tests your breakfast. Let's look closer at the infrastructure supporting us. The retaining walls here are a marvel of 19th century masonry. Known as dry stone walls, many of the original sections were built without mortar. The stones were hand-cut and fitted together with such geometric precision that gravity and friction lock them in place. They are designed to be slightly permeable, allowing meltwater to seep through rather than building up hydraulic pressure behind the wall that could cause a collapse. It is a humbling thought. Our €50,000 electronic braking system and our computer-controlled injection system are relying entirely on rock stacked by hand 200 years ago. As we grind upward past turn 38 and 37, the view to the left becomes increasingly vertiginous. Although the darkness hides the full terror of the drop, the lack of a visible horizon is disorienting. You feel suspended in a void. Occasionally the headlights sweep across the valley, catching the reflective eyes of a chamois, an Alpine goat antelope, perched on a ledge that looks impossibly narrow. They watch us pass with a calm indifference, the true masters of this terrain. We need to discuss the turbo lag danger zone. This is a technical reality that can stop a truck dead in its tracks on a switchback. A diesel engine relies on exhaust gases to spin the turbocharger, which in turn forces air into the engine to burn fuel. It's a cycle, but at high altitudes the air is thin. When we slow down for a hairpin, the engine RPMs drop and the turbo slows down. When we step on the accelerator to climb out of the turn, there is a pause, an agonizing second or two where the engine is dumping fuel but there isn't enough air to burn it. The truck feels sluggish, heavy. If you are in too high a gear, the engine will bog down, smoke will pour out of the stack and you might stall. To counter this, we use a technique called keeping the pot boiling. We try to keep the RPMs slightly higher than necessary entering the turn, sometimes even gently riding the brake while keeping the throttle applied, a technique known as left foot braking. It keeps the turbo spinning and the boost pressure up, so when we release the brake the power is instantaneous. It's tough on the equipment generating excess heat, but stalling on a 12% grade at turn 36 is not an option. We catch up to a slow-moving vehicle ahead. It's a camper van, a vintage Volkswagen Westphalia, struggling with the ascent. Its taillights are dim, and we can smell the distinct acrid odour of burning clutch lining drifting back to us. The driver is likely a tourist, unprepared for the brutality of the incline. We keep a respectful distance. If he stalls or slides back, we need room to manoeuvre. We flash our high beams once, not in anger, but as a gentle, "I'm here, take your time." The camaraderie of the road is different up here. On the highway, a slow vehicle is a nuisance. On the Stelvio, it's a shared struggle. We're all fighting the same gravity. Eventually, at a slightly wider section near turn 34, the camper pulls tight to the rock wall and blinks his right indicator. We accept the invitation. We swing wide, verify the clearance, and power past. The driver, a young man with wide eyes, gives a weary wave. We tap the air horn, a short, polite toot, in solidarity. The air temperature is now 6 degrees Celsius. We have climbed another few hundred meters. The vegetation has completely surrendered. There are no more stunted trees, no more shrubs. It is just rock, asphalt, and ice. The silence outside must be profound, broken only by the mechanical symphony of our passing. There is a ghostly quality to this section of the road. In 1953, the legendary cycling champion Fausto Coppi secured his Giro d'Italia victory on these very slopes. The Cima Coppi, the title given to the highest point of the Giro, was born here. Cyclists revere this asphalt as holy ground. During the day, we would be sharing the road with hundreds of them, panting and sweating in neon lycra. At night, however, the road is reclaimed by the heavy haulers. We are the night shift, the logistical undertow that keeps the mountain economy running while the athletes sleep. We're approaching turn 30. The counting down of the numbers feels like a countdown to a launch. The turns are getting stacked so closely that the GPS screen looks like a plate of spilled spaghetti. The switchback ladder effect is most prominent here. If you look up through the sunroof, you can sometimes see the taillights of a car 3 levels above you, but horizontally, they are only 50 meters away. It messes with your sense of perspective. You're travelling kilometers of distance to gain mere meters of geographic progress. The engine temperature gauge creeps up slightly. 95 degrees. The fan clutch kicks in again, the roar filling the cabin. We ease off the throttle just a fraction. "Easy, girl," we mutter. "We'll get there." The relationship with the truck becomes deeply personal on a climb like this. You start to personify the machine. You feel its effort. You wince when it hits a pothole. You praise it when it pulls smoothly out of a tricky hairpin. It's not just metal and plastic. It's your partner, and right now, it's the only thing keeping you from a very long fall. Turn 28. Turn 27. The rhythm is established. The fear has receded slightly, replaced by a hyper-focused concentration. We are in the zone. The world is just the next apex, the next gear shift, the next glance at the pyrometer. We're climbing the wall, one stone step at a time. We are deep in the rhythm now, locked in a mechanical waltz with the mountain. We have passed the halfway mark of the lower ascent somewhere around turn 25, but the numbers on the signs are starting to blur into a singular, repetitive challenge. It is time to pause, mentally at least, and appreciate the sheer geometric absurdity of what we're doing. To the casual driver in a sedan, a hairpin turn is just a sharp corner. You slow down, you turn the wheel, you accelerate. It is a trivial event, but for a semi-truck, a hairpin is a mathematical problem that must be solved in real time. It is a conflict between the rigid laws of physics and the flexible reality of an articulated vehicle. Let's break down the geometry. We are piloting a combination vehicle, a tractor unit pulling a semi-trailer. The connection point is the fifth wheel, a greased steel plate located above the tractor's rear drive axles. This is the pivot point, the hinge upon which our entire world turns. The critical concept here is low-speed off-tracking. When a vehicle turns, the rear wheels follow a shorter path than the front wheels. This is simple geometry. On a bicycle, the difference is negligible. On a family car, the rear tyres might cut the corner by a few inches. But on a truck with a wheelbase of 16 metres, that difference is measured in metres. It creates a crescent-shaped kill zone on the inside of the turn. If we were to drive the tractor unit along the centre line of the curve, the trailer tyres wouldn't follow us. They would take a shortcut straight across the apex, crushing the guardrail, the mileage marker, and potentially dropping a wheel off the edge of the retaining wall. This means we have to drive the tractor in a way that feels fundamentally wrong. We have to aim for the precipice. Approaching turn 22, we visualise the geometry from above, like a drone looking down. The road here is perhaps 8 metres wide at the bend, generous for 1825, tight for 2026. To get the trailer around without clipping the apex, the tractor must act as a shepherd, guiding the flock wide. We steer the cab toward the outer brink, the front bumper hovering over the void. We're essentially driving the front of the truck off the road to keep the back of the truck on it. It triggers a primal alarm in the reptilian part of the brain that screams, "You are driving off a cliff." We have to suppress that instinct, trusting the geometry, trusting that when we finally crank the wheel, the trailer will dutifully follow the arc we have painted for it. Then there is the friction. Listen to the tyres as we make the turn. Scrub, 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 drag. That is the sound of rubber fighting asphalt. The trailer has 3 axles, 6 tyres fixed in a rigid line. They are designed to roll forward, not to turn. When we force them around a 180-degree bend with a radius of only 10 meters, they cannot all roll perfectly. The geometry forbids it. The tyres on the front axle of the trailer group are being dragged sideways. The tyres on the rear axle are being pushed. They're literally sliding across the pavement, twisting and deforming. This generates heat and massive resistance, acting like a brake just when we need momentum the most. Mechanically, the truck is fighting itself. Inside the drive axles of the Scania, the differential gears are working overtime. In a tight turn, the outside wheel has to travel a much longer distance than the inside wheel. The differential allows them to spin at different speeds, but on a grade this steep with the weight shifting and the tyres scrubbing, one wheel might lose traction and start to spin freely. If that happens, we stop moving. To prevent this, we've engaged the differential lock. This mechanically binds the left and right wheels together, forcing them to turn at the exact same speed. It forces the truck to hop slightly around the corner, shuddering against the driveline tension, but it guarantees that if one wheel has grip, we keep moving. There is a historical irony in this struggle. When Carlo Donegani designed these turns in the 1820s, he calculated the radius based on the turning circle of an Austrian artillery train, 6 horses pulling a cannon. The horses could articulate individually. They could step sideways. A semi-trailer is a rigid box. We are forcing 21st century logistics onto a 19th century military blueprint. The fact that it works at all is a testament to the skill of the driver, not the suitability of the road. As we wrestle the steering wheel around turn 20, we have to consider the swing out. This is the opposite of off-tracking. While the trailer tyres cut the corner on the inside, the rear overhang of the trailer, the part extending behind the rear wheels, swings out in the opposite direction. It acts like a tail. If there were a cyclist or a car hugging our rear bumper on the outside of the turn, the swing out would sweep them off the road. This is why we dominate the centre line. We need to own the entire space, the inside for the off-tracking, the outside for the swing out. We become a rolling roadblock, a geometric monopoly. The physical sensation in the seat is unique. The super elevation, or banking of the turns, is extreme. To help vehicles turn, the road is tilted inward. In a fast car, this banking feels great. It holds you in the seat. In a tall, heavy truck moving at walking speed, it feels precarious. The cab tilts sharply to the right. Gravity pulls us sideways against the seatbelt. Objects on the dashboard, a pen, a pack of gum, slide across and hit the passenger door. You can feel the cargo shifting slightly against the straps in the trailer. It's a moment of imbalance, a feeling of being tipped over until the road flattens out on the exit and the world rights itself again. We check the kingpin in our mental checklist. That steel pin, the size of a soda can, is the only thing connecting the trailer to the tractor. On these uphill switchbacks, the forces acting on it are immense. It is being pulled backward by gravity, the weight of the cargo, and twisted sideways by the turn. If you listen carefully, you can sometimes hear the clunk of the fifth wheel jaws shifting against the pin as the torque reverses. It's a reassuring sound, solid steel holding fast, but a reminder of the tension in the coupling. We are passing turn 18 now. The geometry is becoming even more aggressive. We're approaching the section known as the Sponda Lunga. Here the turns are stacked so tightly that we are barely out of one before we're setting up for the next. It requires a driving rhythm that is almost musical. Swing wide, brake, downshift, turn, check mirror, throttle, straighten, breathe. Swing wide, brake. There is a distinct visual phenomenon that happens at night on these hairpins, the headlight sweep. As we approach the turn, our headlights shine straight ahead, illuminating nothing. just the black sky or a distant mountain peak. We're driving into a void. Then, as we initiate the turn, the beams sweep across the landscape like a lighthouse. For a split second, they illuminate the retaining wall, then the drop-off, then the valley floor far below, and finally, they lock onto the uphill road section. It is a disorienting strobe effect. You have to learn to look not where the lights are pointing, but where the road should be. You drive by memory and intuition until the lights catch up with the steering. We encounter a hairpin within a hairpin at turn 16. The road has slumped slightly over the decades, creating a dip in the middle of the turn. As the tractor wheels hit the dip, the suspension compresses, then rebounds. This causes the cab to bob up and down while leaning sideways. It's a sickening, boat-like motion that can induce simulator sickness, even in veteran drivers. The air suspension seat tries to compensate, chuffing and hissing as it pumps air in and out, but for a moment you feel like you are riding a mechanical bull. The temperature in the differential oil is rising. We can see it on the secondary digital display. The friction of the gears meshing under high load and the lack of cooling airflow at these low speeds is heating up the rear end. It's not critical yet, but it's another thermal variable to juggle. If we stop, the heat soaks into the metal. Moving, even slowly, is better. We glance at the altimeter. 2,100 meters. We have entered the zone where combustion engines truly begin to wheeze. The air density is now roughly 80% of sea level. The stoichiometric ratio, the perfect mix of air and fuel, is harder for the computer to maintain. We can feel a slight delay in the throttle response, a sponginess under the foot. The geometry of the engine's internals is fighting the chemistry of the atmosphere. As we straighten out from turn 15, we see a set of headlights coming down. A car. It's a small Audi, moving fast. He sees us and brakes hard, his nose diving. He realizes the geometry problem too late. We are already committed to the next turn, occupying the entire width of the asphalt to get the trailer around. He has to stop. He reverses, tucking himself into a small gravel cutout near the wall. We pass him slowly, our wheels inches from his bumper. We look down into his cabin. He looks terrified, staring up at the wall of tyres and aluminum siding passing him. We give a small wave of thanks. He didn't wave back. He just grips his steering wheel, waiting for the monster to pass. This is the reality of the Stelvio. It is a shared space where physics dictates the rules and size dictates the right of way. The geometry doesn't care about traffic laws. It only cares about arcs, radii, and pivot points. And right now, we are solving the equation one turn at a time. The air inside the cab has grown still. The only sound the rhythmic chuff of the suspension and the low drone of the engine pulling against the grade. We are passing through a landscape that holds a silence deeper than just the absence of noise. It is a heavy, pressurized silence, the kind that hangs over places where history had been written in blood and ice. We are entering the killing fields of the Great War. To drive the Stelvio Pass at night is to drive through a graveyard. While the tourists come for the views and the cyclists for the glory, the ground beneath our tyres is soaked in the memory of the White War, the Guerra Bianca. From 1915 to 1918, this very ridgeline, the crest of the Ortler Alps, was the highest continuous front line in the history of warfare. It was here that the Kingdom of Italy clashed with the Austro-Hungarian Empire, not on the flat mud of Flanders, but on vertical peaks touching the clouds. As we wrestle the Scania around turn 12, the headlights sweep across a barren field of scree. Somewhere out there in the dark, buried under a century of snowfall and rock slides, lie the remnants of a war fought at 3,000 meters, barbed wire, rusted tin cans, unexploded shells, and the bones of men who never came home. It is difficult to reconcile the comfort of our modern existence with the reality of what happened here. We're sitting in an air-suspended seat, the climate control set to a pleasant 20 degrees, sipping coffee from a thermos. Just outside that glass, young men, boys really, from Sicily and Vienna, from Naples and Tyrol, froze to death in holes they hacked out of the permafrost. They didn't just fight each other, they fought the mountain, and the mountain usually won. The logistics of this front were a nightmare that makes our job look like child's play. Think about the effort we're expending right now. A 12-litre diesel engine burning litres of fuel to haul 20 tons of cargo. Back then, every bullet, every blanket, every piece of timber for a shelter had to be hauled up here by mule, by sled, or on the backs of men. They built a complex network of aerial cable cars, teleferike, that strung across the valleys like spider webs. These were the supply lines of the sky. Often, in the dead of winter, wounded soldiers were strapped onto these swaying baskets and lowered thousands of feet down to field hospitals in the valley, dangling over the abyss in a terrifying, lonely descent. We pass a shadow on the roadside that looks like a rock formation, but the geometry is too square. It's likely the foundation of an old barracks or a gun emplacement. The Stelvio was a strategic prize. The Italians wanted to break through to the Tyrol. The Austrians had to hold the high ground to protect their empire's soft underbelly. So they dug in, literally. They carved entire cities inside the glaciers. The ice city in the Marmolada is the most famous, but here too men lived inside the ice, protected from the wind but constantly damp, cold, and living in perpetual twilight. There is a specific technical aspect of high-altitude warfare that mirrors our struggle with the truck tonight, the thin air. We talked about turbo lag earlier, about the engine gasping for oxygen. The soldiers faced the same hypoxia. Simple physical tasks became exhausting. Swinging a pickaxe left a man breathless. The combustion of gunpowder was affected. Ballistics changed. A sniper shooting across a valley had to calculate not just wind and drop, but the fact that the bullet would fly flatter and faster in the rare air. But the true enemy wasn't the sniper, it was the White Death, avalanches. In the winter of 1916, specifically around December 13th, a day remembered as White Friday, massive snowfalls triggered a series of avalanches across the entire Alpine front. In a span of 48 hours, thousands of soldiers on both sides were buried alive. Entire companies were wiped out while they slept in their barracks. The mountain didn't care about their uniforms, it simply shook them off. Driving past these slopes now, seeing the snow fences and the modern avalanche barriers, you feel a profound sense of respect. Those rusted iron crosses we sometimes see on the hiking trails, they aren't just markers, they are warnings. The wind howling around the side mirrors sounds different when you know the stories. It sounds less like weather and more like a voice. There is an anecdote recorded in the diary of an Austrian Kaiserschütze, a sharpshooter stationed near the Scorluzzo Peak, just above where we are driving. He wrote about a night like this, clear, cold, and silent. He described hearing an Italian Alpino on the opposite ridge singing an opera aria. The sound carried perfectly in the thin, cold air. For a few minutes, the shooting stopped. Both sides listened to the music echoing off the glaciers. Then, the song ended. The cold silence returned, and the war resumed. It's a haunting image, beauty and death coexisting in the high vacuum of the Alps. We shift gears, literally and mentally. We're approaching the Pian di Grembo, a slightly flatter section before the final assault on the summit. The truck relaxes for a moment, the engine RPMs dropping as the grade eases. This area was a staging ground. You can imagine the smell here 100 years ago. Not diesel exhaust, but wood smoke, unwashed bodies, horse manure, and the acrid tang of cordite. The road here is flanked by rocks that still bear the scars of drilling. To build the fortifications, they used pneumatic drills powered by massive compressors hauled up from the valley. The noise must have been deafening, a constant industrial racket in a place that should be silent. It reminds us that there is no such thing as pristine wilderness in Europe. Even the highest peaks have been industrialized, militarized, and engineered. As we check the mirrors, we see the darkness swallowing the road behind us. It feels like the past is closing in. The ghosts of the Alpini, the elite Italian mountain troops with their distinctive raven-feathered caps, seem to watch from the ridges. They were masters of this terrain. They wore white camouflage overalls over their uniforms, moving like phantoms across the snowfields. They pioneered ski warfare. Today, skiing here is a leisure activity. Then, it was a martial art, a way to close distance with a bayonet. The temperature gauge reads 4 degrees Celsius. It's cold, but not the 40 below zero that the soldiers endured during the winter of 1917. They wrapped their feet in paper and straw inside their boots to prevent frostbite. They rubbed grease on their faces, and still, they lost toes, fingers, and noses. We reach down and turn up the heater dial a notch, feeling a sudden sharp pang of guilt for the luxury. We are passing the turn-off for the 3 languages peak, Pida las Tres Linguas. It is a geographic anomaly near the summit where the borders of Italy and Switzerland meet, and where historically 3 languages collided: Italian, German, and Romansh. During the war, this linguistic diversity made the front lines chaotic. Soldiers on opposite sides often spoke the same dialect, shouting insults or greetings across the wire in the slang of their shared valleys. It was a civil war of the mountains. The truck groans as the gradient bites again. We're leaving the ghost-filled plateau and heading for the final set of switchbacks. The White War is fading into the rear view, but its presence lingers. The road we're driving was maintained during the war at a cost of immense human suffering. Every cobblestone, every retaining wall in this upper section was likely repaired by a prisoner of war or a soldier under fire. We're driving on their labour. There is a small memorial chapel near the summit, Santa Maria Nascente, the highest bank in Italy, and a museum. But the real museum is the landscape itself. As the headlights cut through the gloom, they illuminate the jagged, unnatural shapes of rock piles that were once trench lines. Nature is slowly reclaiming them, softening the edges with moss and lichen, but the scars remain. "Rest easy, boys," we whisper. It seems appropriate. The trucking fraternity has a lot in common with soldiers: the long separations from home, the reliance on equipment, the brotherhood of the road. But our risks are calculated. Theirs were absolute. The engine roars, breaking the somber mood. The machine demands attention. We have to watch the oil temperature, it's creeping up again. The transmission hunts for a gear, undecided between 6th and 7th. We force it into 6th. We need the control. We're approaching the snowline proper now. The patches of white in the gullies are no longer patches, they are fields. The air is crisp, lacking the humidity of the valley. It is the air of the high Alps, clean, thin, and merciless. We leave the ghosts to their eternal watch. The summit is close. The Passo dello Stelvio sign is waiting. But as we grind toward the sky, we carry a little more weight than we did in the valley. We carry the knowledge that this road is more than just asphalt. It is a monument. The altimeter on the dashboard ticks over 2,400 meters. We are now driving at an elevation higher than the rooftop of almost every building in Europe. Outside, the environment has been stripped of all superfluity. There is no grass, no moss, not even the hardy lichen that clung to the rocks 1,000 feet below. There is only grey stone, white snow, and the black asphalt ribbon we are clinging to. But the most immediate change isn't visible, it is felt. It is felt in the sole of the right foot, and heard in the high-pitched whine coming from the engine bay. We are entering the death zone for internal combustion. Down at sea level, the air is a thick, rich soup of oxygen and nitrogen. The engine gulps it down greedily. But up here, the air is thin, it is ragged. The barometric pressure has dropped significantly, meaning there are fewer oxygen molecules in every breath the truck takes. For a diesel engine, which relies on compressing air until it gets hot enough to auto-ignite the fuel, this is a crisis. We press the accelerator pedal to pull out of turn 10, expecting the usual surge of torque that pushes us back into the seat. Instead, there is a hesitation, a pause. It feels as if the throttle cable has been replaced by a rubber band. The engine groans, a deep, hollow sound before the power finally arrives in a sudden jerky wave. This is the reality of extreme altitude trucking, the battle against air density. Let's get technical for a moment, because this is where the engineering really matters. A diesel engine operates on a specific stoichiometric ratio, roughly 14 parts of air to 1 part of fuel. The truck's electronic control unit, ECU, is a rigid mathematician. It wants that ratio to be perfect. But up here, the air part of the equation is missing. The sensors in the intake manifold detect the low pressure. If the computer simply injected the standard amount of fuel, there wouldn't be enough oxygen to burn it all. The result would be unburnt diesel, black smoke pouring out of the stack, soaring exhaust gas temperatures, EGTs, and a potential meltdown of the turbine blades. So the computer derates the engine, it holds back the fuel, it says, "I can't breathe, so I won't eat." The 500 horsepower we paid for in the dealership showroom? Forget about it. At this altitude, we're probably putting down 380, maybe 400 if we're lucky. We're hauling a 22-ton load with a handicap. The hero of this struggle is the turbocharger. Listen to it. That high-pitched whistle, bordering on a shriek, is the sound of the turbine spinning at nearly 100,000 RPM. It is frantically trying to compress the thin mountain air into something dense enough to ignite. Modern trucks use variable geometry turbochargers, VGT. Inside the turbo housing, there are tiny vanes that can change their angle. Right now, the computer has clamped those vanes shut, narrowing the path for the exhaust gas to speed it up, trying to squeeze every ounce of energy out of the exhaust to spin the compressor wheel. It is a mechanical, desperate measure. We have to adjust our driving style to help the machine. Momentum management becomes RPM management. We cannot let the engine speed drop below 1400 RPM. If it drops to 100, usually a fine cruising speed on the flat, the turbo will fall off its efficiency map. It will stall, losing boost pressure. If that happens on a 12% grade, we are dead in the water. We will have to stop, shift into first gear, and crawl our way back up to speed, burning the clutch in the process. So we drive aggressively. We hold the gears longer. We let the engine scream a little. It feels abusive, keeping the needle near the red line. But it is necessary. We are force-feeding the engine the air it needs. The temperature gauge is behaving strangely too. The coolant temperature is fluctuating. You might think that in the freezing mountain air, it's now 2 degrees Celsius outside, the engine would run cool. But the opposite is true. Because the air is less dense, it is less effective at carrying heat away from the radiator. The cooling fan is roaring constantly now, locking up and disengaging in a cycle that saps even more power from the crankshaft. It's a vicious cycle. We need high RPMs for air, but high RPMs create heat, which the thin air can't dissipate. Inside the cab, we feel it too. We find ourselves yawning. It's not fatigue. We are wide awake, adrenaline pumping. It's the body's reflex to get more oxygen. We crack the window again. The air that rushes in is shockingly cold and dry. It stings the nose. It smells of absolutely nothing. A sterile, vacuum-like purity. It clears the head, but it reminds us of how hostile this environment is. We are passing the turnoff for the Rifugio Garibaldi, perched like an eagle's nest on a rocky promontory. In the daylight, this is a bustling spot for hikers catching their breath. Tonight, it is a dark silhouette against the stars. We are alone in the moonscape. The headlights illuminate the snowbanks on the side of the road, which are taller than the truck now. They are carved into vertical walls by the rotary ploughs, creating a white canyon. The light bounces off the snow, creating a diffuse glow that softens the shadows but makes it harder to see the road markings. There is a specific danger here called turbo surge. If we lift off the throttle too quickly after a hard pull, say to slow down for a switchback, the pressurized air in the intake has nowhere to go. It can rush back through the compressor wheel, making a distinct cha-cha-cha sound. It sounds cool in a movie. In real life, it snaps turbo shafts. We have to be smooth. We ease off the throttle gently, letting the pressure bleed off naturally. The Scania feels heavy. The steering feels lighter, almost floaty, as the weight transfers backward on the steep incline. We are dragging a dead weight up a wall. The connection between the driver and the road feels tenuous. On the autostrada, the truck felt planted, solid. Here, it feels like it is tiptoeing. One slip of a drive wheel on a patch of black ice, and the traction control will cut the power instantly. If the power cuts, we stop. And starting a fully loaded truck on a steep, icy incline at 2,500 meters is a scenario that ends with tow trucks and very expensive bills. We glance at the barometer again. The EGTs are hovering around 550 degrees Celsius. The danger zone is 650. We are safe, but the margin is thin. If we were to mash the pedal to the floor, we could spike it in seconds. It requires discipline to accept the slow speed. We're doing 25 kilometers per hour. A runner could keep up with us, but we aren't racing. We're enduring. The landscape outside is alien. The rocks are jagged, shattered by the freeze-thaw cycle of millions of years. This is the raw geology of the planet. There is no softening influence of biology here. It is a binary world. Rock and ice, black and white. The truck, with its bright red paint and amber marker lights, looks absurdly vibrant against this monochrome backdrop. We are a foreign object, an intruder. We pass a cyclist's memorial, a bicycle wheel welded to a cross. It's a sobering reminder. The physical exertion required to pedal up here is immense, but even for a machine, the exertion is palpable. You can feel the vibration of the struggle in the floor mats. The driveline is wound tight like a guitar string. The harmonics of the engine are different, rougher, more metallic. As we approach turn 6, the air feels even thinner. We are nearing the summit. The truck is tired. We are tired. The constant micro-corrections of the steering, the constant monitoring of the gauges, the noise of the fan, it all adds up to a sensory overload, but we can't relax. The final sequence of turns is the steepest and the tightest. "Come on, old girl," we coax the dashboard. Almost there. The turbo whistles its high-pitched reply. It is singing the song of the high Alps, a song of compression and combustion fighting against the vacuum. We are winning, metre by metre, but the mountain is making us pay for every inch. The summit is close enough to touch, yet it feels impossibly distant. We are staring up at the final, crowning sequence of the northern face, the last 5 turns. If the previous 43 switchbacks were a grueling test of endurance, these final 5 are a test of nerve. From the cockpit, the road ahead looks less like a highway and more like a spiral staircase carved into a skyscraper. The vertical separation between the loops of asphalt is minimal, perhaps only 10 or 15 metres of elevation gain between one hairpin and the next. This creates a terrifying visual density. If we were to open the driver's side window and lean out, we could almost look straight down onto the roof of the road section we just traversed. It is a layer cake of engineering, stacked so steeply that the GPS screen shows the road crossing over itself repeatedly, a confused knot of blue lines. We approach turn 5. It is a left-hander. In a left-hand drive truck like our Scania, left-hand hairpins are generally easier. A relative term, of course. We can look out the side window and see the asphalt directly. We can see exactly where the steer tyre is relative to the centre line. We can judge the apex with our own eyes. We swing wide, the right steer tyre flirting with the outer edge of the pavement, hovering over the drop. The guardrail here is startlingly low. A mere ribbon of steel that seems more decorative than functional. If the truck were to slide, that rail would peel away like tin foil. We ignore the abyss and focus on the line. We crank the wheel left, looking back over the shoulder. The trailer follows obediently, its tyres scrubbing hard, cutting the corner but staying on the blacktop. We power out, the engine roaring against the stone wall that now towers on our right. But the relief is short-lived. Turn 4 is coming, and turn 4 is a right-hander. For a European trucker, the right-hand hairpin on a narrow mountain pass is the nemesis. This is the blind side. We're sitting on the left of the cab. The turn curves away from us to the right. The apex of the corner, the point we need to hug to leave room for the trailer swing, is hidden behind the massive bulk of the dashboard and the A-pillar. We cannot see the curb. We cannot see the stone marker. We are driving entirely by the mirrors and by spatial memory, a mental map of where the wheels should be. We slow to a crawl, 5 kilometers per hour. We position the truck as far left as possible, actually driving in the oncoming lane. We have to. If we don't, the trailer will off-track right off the inside of the curve and get hung up on the retaining wall. We initiate the turn, staring intently into the wide-angle mirror on the right. This is where the geometry gets critical. We're looking for the jackknife point. As we turn the steering wheel to full lock right, the angle between the tractor and the trailer becomes acute. If we turn too sharp, the front corner of the trailer will crash into the back of the cab, crushing the aerodynamic fairings, the cab extenders. It's a sickening crunch that every driver dreads. We have to turn tight enough to make the corner, but not so tight that we crush our own truck. It is a game of millimeters. We watch the mirror. The trailer side wall is pivoting. The rear wheels are dragging, sliding sideways. We can't see the gap between the trailer tyres and the inside wall, but we can see the marker lights illuminating the stones. They are close. Too close. No, they clear. Just. We exhale, a breath we didn't realise we were holding, and gently feed the throttle. The truck shudders as the drive lane straightens out. This specific section of the road, these final tight loops, has remained virtually unchanged since the 1820s. Think about the audacity of that. When Carlo Donegani drew these lines on a parchment map, he was designing for mules and carts. He could never have envisioned a 16-metre-long articulated lorry carrying 22 tons of generator parts. Yet, the geometry still holds. It is tight, it is unforgiving, but it is possible. It is a testament to the golden ratio of Alpine engineering. Maximize the run, minimize the rise. Turn 3. Another left-hander. We are grateful for the visibility. The exposure here is absolute. To our right, the mountain falls away into the darkness of the Stelvio Valley. There are no trees to break the fall, no slopes to catch a sliding vehicle. Just a sheer rocky descent of nearly 1,000 meters. It triggers a primal vertigo. The brain screams that we are too high, too heavy, too precarious. We have to actively suppress that panic, funneling it into focus. Look at the line, not the drop, we tell ourselves. We are passing the point where, during the day, the gallery gathers. In the summer, tourists stand on the stone walls above these final turns, cameras in hand, waiting for a truck or a bus to come through. They want to see the spectacle. They want to see if we get stuck. They cheer when we make it. They gasp when we have to reverse. Tonight there is no audience, no applause, just the indifference of the wind and the stars. Turn 2. The penultimate challenge. It is a right-hander, steeper than the last. The gradient spikes to nearly 14% on the inside line. We engage the hill hold feature. This system keeps the brakes applied for 2 seconds after we lift our foot from the brake pedal, giving us time to move to the accelerator without rolling backward. Rolling backward here is not an option. If we roll back even a meter, the trailer will jackknife instantly against the gradient and we will be pinned. We push the throttle. The engine revs, but the truck doesn't move. The clutch is slipping, modulating the power. Then, with a lurch, the brakes release and we surge forward. We swing wide, claiming the entire road surface. The headlights sweep across a mural painted on the retaining wall, a faded depiction of a 19th century stagecoach. We are the modern successors to those coaches, but we lack the luxury of a whip. We have only torque. The air suspension is working overtime. As we corner, the weight of the cargo shifts. The sensors detect the lean and pump high-pressure air into the airbags on the low side to level the load. You can hear it. Sharp hiss cutting through the engine noise. The truck is actively fighting gravity, trying to keep the platform stable while the earth beneath it twists and tilts. We are now approaching the final turn. Turn 1. There is a psychological weight to turn 1. It is the victory lap. It is the final barrier before the summit plateau, but it is also a trap. Drivers often relax too early here. They see the summit hotel lights, they see the flat road ahead, and they get sloppy. They cut the corner too tight, eager to be finished. And that is where they get stuck, hung up on the very last stone of the climb. We treat turn 1 with the same reverence as turn 48. We slow down. We check the mirrors. We swing wide. It is a left-hander, thankfully. As we round the bend, the headlights finally illuminate something other than rock and road. They hit the side of a building, the Hotel Pirovano. We see the sign for the summit. Passo dello Stelvio, 27. We straighten the wheel. The sensation is immediate. The relentless backward pull of gravity vanishes. The engine pitch changes from a strained growl to a smooth, contented hum. We have crested. We are no longer climbing. We are floating on the roof of Italy. The transition is jarring. One moment we were hanging off a cliff fighting for every inch of traction. The next we're rolling on a flat, wide piece of pavement surrounded by buildings. The tension drains from the shoulders, leaving a dull ache. The grip on the steering wheel loosens. We take a deep breath and for the first time in an hour, the air doesn't feel like a threat. It feels like a reward. This spot, the actual pass, is a strange high-altitude city. There are souvenir shops closed, bratwurst stands shuttered, and banks dark. It is a commercial hub built in the clouds. During the day, it is a circus of motorcycles, bicycles, and sports cars. At night, it is a ghost town frozen in time. The silence is profound. The wind whips between the buildings, carrying the scent of snow from the glaciers that sit just above us. We're not just at a geographical high point. We're at a historical one. This pass has been a border crossing for centuries. It separated Lombardy from Tyrol, Italy from Austria. It's been a toll road, a smuggling route, a front line, and a racetrack. By bringing this truck up here, we've added our own small chapter to that history. We didn't conquer the mountain is still there, indifferent and massive, but we survived it. We let the truck roll gently past the summit sign. We don't stop yet. We need to find a flat spot to do a quick walk around, to check the tyres and the brakes before we even think about the descent. Because as every mountain driver knows, getting up is optional, getting down is mandatory. And the descent with its brake fade and gravity acceleration is where the real danger often lies. But for this brief moment, between turn 1 and the first drop of the southern slope, we are kings of the road. We are higher than the eagles. The Scania idles smoothly, the turbo cooling down, the fan clutch disengaged. We have climbed the wall, the count is 0. The cessation of the struggle is almost as jarring as the climb itself. As the Scania rolls onto the flat expanse of the summit plateau, the violent forces that have been tossing us around the cab for the last hour suddenly evaporate. The suspension stops heaving, the tyres stop scrubbing, and the engine's frantic roar drops to a rhythmic, contented purr. We're no longer fighting gravity. We have, for this brief moment, neutralized it. We drift past the shuttered storefronts of the souvenir shops, their windows filled with stuffed marmots and t-shirts that say, "I survived the Stelvio." It is a surreal sight, a commercial high street sitting at 2,157 metres or 9,045 feet above sea level. This is the Passo dello Stelvio, the second highest paved mountain pass in the Alps, surpassed only by the Col de l'Iseran in France. Standing here in the dead of night, with the wind howling between the buildings, it feels less like a tourist destination and more like a moon base. We spot a wide patch of pavement near the famous Banca Popolare di Sondrio. It is a piece of trivia that every driver who passes through here knows. This is the highest bank branch in Europe. We pull the truck gently into the lay-by, the gravel crunching beneath the tyres. We engage the parking brake. The sudden psh of the air release echoes loudly off the hotel facades. Now comes a critical technical procedure, the cool down. You cannot simply turn the key and kill the engine after a climb like that. The turbocharger is glowing hot, literally. The turbine housing can reach temperatures of over 700 degrees Celsius. If we were to shut off the engine now, the oil flow would stop instantly. The oil remaining inside the turbo bearings would coke. It would boil and bake into a hard carbonized sludge, ruining the bearings and destroying the turbo. So, we sit. We let the engine idle. We watch the pyrometer needle slowly creep down from 500 degrees to 300, then 200. It is a mandatory pause, a mechanical meditation. While the engine idles, we crack the door and step out onto the running board. The cold hits us like a physical blow. The air temperature is now 2 degrees Celsius. The wind chill makes it feel like 10, but it's not just the cold, it's the air pressure. At this altitude, the atmospheric pressure is roughly 720 millibars compared to 1013 at sea level. There is about 27% less oxygen available for every breath. We feel a slight dizziness, a lightness in the head. It's mild hypoxia. For the tourists who drive up here in an hour from the valley, it often manifests as a headache or nausea. For us, having acclimated slightly during the slow climb, it just feels like the world has sharpened, the edges of reality becoming a little more distinct. We climb down to the asphalt. The silence, once you step away from the truck's engine, is absolute. There is no hum of distant traffic, no rustle of leaves, there are no trees, no insect noise, just the wind whistling through the cables of the nearby ski lift. This location has a bizarre history. Because of the permanent glaciers of the Livrio range just above us, the Stelvio is one of the few places in Europe that offers summer skiing. In the 1930s, the fascists promoted it as a symbol of Italian vigour, building the massive hotels that still stand today, like the Hotel Pirovano. These buildings, with their rationalist architecture, look imposing and slightly out of place, like ocean liners stranded on a mountaintop. In the summer months, national ski teams from all over the world come here to train. You can see the bizarre spectacle of athletes in full winter gear carrying skis in July, while motorcyclists in leather suits eat bratwurst next to them. We walk around the truck, flashlight in hand. The heat radiating from the vehicle is immense. You can smell it. The hot metal smell of a hard-worked machine. We check the hubs of the drive axles. They are warm to the touch, which is normal but not scalding. We check the tyres. They've taken a beating on the coarse asphalt and the sharp switchbacks. We're looking for chunking, pieces of rubber torn out of the tread blocks. The front steers look good. The trailer tyre shows some scrub marks on the sidewalls from those tight right-handers, but nothing structural. We pause at the rear of the trailer and look back the way we came. The view is terrifyingly beautiful. We can see the ribbon of road coiling down into the Trafoi Valley, a tangled mess of black snakes. We can see the headlights of that Audi we passed earlier, still winding its way up miles below us. It puts the scale of the achievement into perspective. We have just lifted a 22-ton industrial load-up that, it feels like a magic trick. Nearby stands a stone monument dedicated to Fausto Coppi, the Campionissimo, champion of champions. The Stelvio is the spiritual home of Italian cycling, and the highest point of the Giro d'Italia is always designated the Cima Coppi in his honour. The statue captures him in mid-effort, hunched over the handlebars. It's fitting. Truckers and cyclists share a strange bond on these roads. We both understand the misery of the grade, the importance of momentum, and the sweet relief of the summit. We're both engines of a sort, one biological, one mechanical, pushed to our limits by the terrain. We climb back into the cab. The warmth is welcoming. The barometer has settled to a safe 150 degrees. We could shut it off now, but we won't. We need the compressor to keep the air tanks topped up for the descent. Let's talk about the geography of where we are parked. We are sitting on a watershed. Rain that falls on the slope behind us flows into the Adige, then to the Adriatic Sea. Rain that falls on the slope ahead of us flows into the Adda, then to the Po, and eventually to the Adriatic as well, but by a completely different route. A few hundred metres to the north, over the Swiss border at the Dreisbreckenspitze, the water flows into the Inn, then the Danube, and finally the Black Sea. We are straddling the hydrological spine of the continent. The summit is also a cultural dividing line. Behind us lies the German-speaking, Austrian-influenced South Tyrol. Ahead of us lies Lombardy, Italian-speaking, chaotic, passionate. We are crossing a cultural fault line. The architecture changes, the food changes, even the driving style changes. The northern side we just climbed is precise, engineered, almost rhythmic. The southern side we're about to descend is wilder, faster and more open. We grab a bottle of water from the cooler. Hydration is crucial at altitude. The dry air sucks moisture out of the body with every breath. Dehydration accelerates the effects of altitude sickness, leading to slower reaction times, something we cannot afford on the way down. We take a long drink, the water cool and grounding. The GPS shows the path ahead, a squiggly blue line descending toward Bormio. The descent is technically easier in terms of engine power, but harder in terms of vehicle dynamics. On the way up, gravity was the enemy, fighting our progress. On the way down, gravity becomes a traitorous friend, trying to push us faster than we can safely go. The kinetic energy we stored in the truck by lifting it 2 kilometers into the sky is waiting to be released. If we let it release all at once, we become a missile. We have to dissipate that energy slowly, controllably through heat. We check the brakes. We perform a static brake check. We press the pedal hard and hold it, watching the air pressure gauges. The needles hold steady. No leaks. The system is tight. We check the retarder switch. It is our lifeline. We will rely on it for 90% of the braking force. The service brakes, the foot pedal, are for emergencies and full stops only. Using them to control speed on a long descent is a rookie mistake that leads to glazing, where the brake pads overheat and turn into a glass-like substance that offers zero friction. Before we release the parking brake, we take one last look at the summit. The Tibetan-style hut on the hill, the Refugio Garibaldi, is barely visible against the stars. It looks like something from the Himalayas, adding to the otherworldly vibe. It is a strange place, this roof of the world. It feels transient, a place where people and machines pass through but never truly belong. The mountain tolerates our presence, but only just. We put the transmission into manual mode. We select 6th gear. The rule of thumb for mountain driving is go down in 1 gear lower than you came up. We came up the steepest parts in 7th or 8th, but we want maximum engine braking. We want the engine to scream, to fight the gravity with every compression stroke. Ready? We ask the empty cab. The Scania rumbles its affirmation. We release the parking brake. The air hisses. The truck lurches slightly, eager to roll. We lift our foot off the brake and gravity instantly takes hold. The truck begins to creep forward, gathering speed. We are no longer climbing. We are falling under control toward the lights of Bormio far, far below. The summit is conquered. The descent begins. The nose of the Scania dips. It is a subtle movement, a mere shift of a few degrees below the horizon line, but the sensation in the pit of the stomach is unmistakable. We have crossed the invisible threshold of the watershed. The summit plateau is behind us, and the long winding slide into the Valtellina has begun. On the ascent, we were fighting gravity. It was an honest, grueling wrestling match where the engine did all the work. The descent is different. It is a negotiation with potential energy. We spent the last hour storing energy in this 22-ton mass by lifting it nearly 2 vertical miles. Now physics demands that energy back. If we were to put the transmission in neutral and let the truck roll, a suicidal move known as Mexican overdrive, we would hit terminal velocity within seconds. The truck would become a runaway train, a kinetic missile incapable of turning. Our job now is to release that energy slowly, converting it into heat in a controlled manner, rather than into speed. We are locked in 6th gear. The engine RPMs jump up to 1800 as gravity grabs the load. We reach for the retarder stalk on the right side of the steering column. This is our primary weapon for the next hour. The retarder is a hydraulic brake built into the transmission. Inside a housing filled with oil, two turbines spin against each other. When we pull the lever, we introduce oil between them, creating massive fluid resistance. It acts like a spoon stirring thick honey. It slows the drive shaft without a single brake pad touching a rotor. We pull the lever to position 1. A low, electric-like hum begins to permeate the cab. The descent speed stabilizes at 30 km per hour. The southern face of the Stelvio, leading down toward Bormio, has a different character than the northern wall we just climbed. The north side is a sheer cliff face, a vertical stack of masonry. The south side is a wilder, more chaotic landscape. We are entering the Valle del Braulio. The road here doesn't just switch back, it wanders, following the contours of a deep, jagged gorge carved by the Braulio stream. The drop-offs are just as deadly, but the scenery feels less like a fortress and more like a desolate wilderness. The first few turns on the descent are relatively open, allowing us to feel the weight of the trailer. This is the pusher effect. On the way up, the trailer was a dead weight dragging behind us, pulling the coupling taut. Now it is a battering ram trying to shove the tractor unit downhill. We can feel it in the seat of our pants. A slight squirming sensation from the rear axles. If we brake too hard in a curve, the trailer's momentum will try to overtake the tractor, pushing the rear of the truck sideways. This is the mechanics of a jackknife. To prevent it, we have to keep the tractor in tension, leading the dance, never letting the trailer dictate the speed. We pass the Cantoniera 4, another of the historic road maintenance houses. It sits abandoned and weathered, its red plaster peeling to reveal the stone beneath. In the headlights, it looks like a skull staring out over the valley. These structures are numbered from the bottom up on both sides, remnants of the days when the distance was measured in hours of walking, not minutes of driving. The road narrows as we approach a section known as the Bocca del Braulio, the mouth of the Braulio. Here, the valley tightens into a gorge. To our right, the rock wall rises vertically. To our left, it drops away into the blackness where the waterfall Cascata del Braulio roars. We can't see the water in the dark, but we can see the mist rising from the abyss, drifting across the road like smoke. The humidity spikes, and the asphalt glistens with dampness. Watch the ice, we mutter. Wet roads at 2,500 meters are never just wet. They are potentially frozen. We check the outside temperature. Still hovering around 0. We treat every shiny patch of tarmac as if it were glass. We ease off the retarder slightly. The hydraulic brake only works on the drive wheels. If the retarder braking force exceeds the tyre grip on a slick patch, the drive wheels will lock up and the engine will stall at 30 km/h. That sends the truck into a skid. We have to balance the retardation force against the available traction. It is a delicate fingertip adjustment, constantly clicking the lever up and down, position 1, position 2, off, position 1. The geology here is treacherous. This side of the pass is prone to rockfall. The slopes are made of crumbling dolomite and limestone, held together by gravity and hope. We see fresh scars on the pavement where boulders have landed recently. The road crews are constantly clearing debris. We scan the road ahead not just for traffic, but for rocks the size of watermelons sitting in our lane. Hitting one of those would tear the oil pan right off the engine. There is a grim history to this descent. In 1918, as the war ended and the Austrian army retreated, this road became a chaotic funnel of defeat. Thousands of soldiers, horses and vehicles tried to flee north while the Italians advanced. In the panic, trucks and caissons were pushed off the road to clear the way. For decades afterwards, you could still find the rusted skeletons of vehicles in the gorge below, the iron bones of an empire picked clean by the elements. We approach a series of tunnels. These aren't the wide, tile-lined tunnels of the autostrada. These are raw holes bored through the rock, narrow and dark. Some are unlit. We blast the high beams as we enter. The exhaust note changes instantly, amplifying into a deafening roar that bounces off the rough-hewn ceiling. The clearance is tight. The arched roof means that if we drive too close to the edge, the top corner of the trailer will scrape the rock. We have to drive down the centre, straddling the line, praying that no one enters from the other side. Exiting the tunnel, the view opens up briefly. Far, far below, we can see the twinkling lights of Bormio. It looks like a model village, warm and inviting. But it is still 10 kilometres away vertically. It's a deceptive beacon. It tempts you to hurry, to let the truck roll a little faster. I can see the destination, the brain says. Let's get there. We have to silence that voice. Impatience on a mountain descent is fatal. We're catching up to a car. It's a sedan, riding its brakes. The brake lights are on constantly, a glaring red intrusion in the dark. We can smell it before we get close, the sharp, acrid stench of burning friction material. It smells like hot chemical glue. The driver is riding the pedal, keeping his foot on the brake continuously instead of downshifting. His rotors are likely glowing cherry red. If he keeps this up, his brake fluid will boil and his pedal will go to the floor. We back off. We leave a massive gap, 200 metres. If his brakes fail, he is going to accelerate uncontrollably. We need room to stop without becoming part of his accident. We flash our lights briefly, a universal signal to check your speed, but he probably interprets it as aggression. He speeds up, disappearing around the next bend. We let him go. We stick to our rhythm. The descent is, in many ways, more physically demanding than the ascent. On the way up, you are pressed back into the seat. On the way down, you are hanging forward against the seatbelt. The muscles in your neck and shoulders tense up, bracing against the deceleration. You are constantly scanning for the runaway truck ramp. The bad news? The Stelvio doesn't have them. There are no gravel pits to catch a failure. The ramp is the guardrail, and behind that, the air. We check the instrument panel. The air pressure is holding steady at 12 bar. The coolant temp has dropped significantly, now sitting at a cool 75 degrees. The engine isn't burning fuel, it's just an air pump now. The heater in the cab starts to blow lukewarm air. We button up our flannel shirt. The descent is a cold business. We are passing the Sacrario Militar, a World War I ossuary located near the roadside. It holds the remains of soldiers who died on these peaks. It's a sombre, blocky stone structure. Even at night it commands a presence. It's a reminder that while we worry about brake temperatures and delivery times, the stakes here were once infinitely higher. We offer a silent nod. The road straightens out for a few hundred metres. The Piana del Braulio. It's a brief respite from the cornering forces. We check the mirrors. The trailer is tracking true. The marker lights are all on. We are a self-contained ecosystem of light and noise moving through the wilderness. The GPS chimes. Sharp curve ahead. We prepare for the next sequence. The road is about to drop down a series of step switchbacks known as the Scale di Fraile, the Stairs of Fraile. The name is appropriate. It feels less like driving and more like falling down a staircase in slow motion. We click the retarder lever down another notch. Position 2. The hum deepens. The seatbelt locks against our chest. Steady, we whisper. The lights of Bormio are getting brighter. larger. But the most dangerous part of the descent is coming up. The brakes are cold now, but as the air gets thicker and the grade gets steeper near the bottom, the heat will build. We have managed the energy well so far, but gravity is relentless. It never gets tired. We do. The air inside the cab has changed. It is no longer just the crisp, sterile scent of the high Alpine night. A new odour has begun to seep through the vents, a sharp, metallic tang mixed with the acrid stench of burning chemical resins. It is the smell of friction. It is the smell of fear. Even though we have been disciplined using the hydraulic retarder and the engine compression to hold back the 22 tons of mass, the laws of thermodynamics are inescapable. We're descending into the lower atmosphere where the air is denser and slightly warmer, and the heat radiating from the wheel hubs is beginning to make itself known. This is the realm of brake fade, the silent killer of the mountain descent. We need to understand exactly what is happening at the end of those axles. Our trailer uses drum brakes, a technology that hasn't fundamentally changed since the 1940s. Inside a cast iron drum, two curved shoes lined with friction material are pushed outward by air pressure to rub against the spinning inner surface. It is a brute force system. When we apply the brakes, we're converting kinetic energy, motion, into thermal energy, heat. But cast iron has a weakness: it expands when it gets hot. As the drums absorb the colossal energy of the descent, they physically grow larger. The diameter increases by fractions of a millimeter. It doesn't sound like much, but it means the brake shoes have to travel further to make contact. The brake pedal feels long, or mushy. You press it, and nothing happens for the first inch. Then, you press harder to compensate. This creates more heat. The drum expands further. It is a feedback loop that ends with the mechanical fade, where the shoes can no longer reach the drum walls with sufficient force to stop the truck. The pedal hits the floor, and the truck keeps rolling. We round a tight blind curve near the Galleria dei Bagni, a semi-open tunnel supported by stone arches. In the emergency pull-out just beyond the tunnel exit, we see a familiar set of taillights. It is the sedan that passed us earlier, the one that was riding its brakes. It is stopped, hazard lights flashing. As we roll past slowly, we see the driver standing by the front wheel, waving his hand in front of his face. Thick, blue-grey smoke is billowing from his wheel wells. His rotors are likely glowing a dull orange, visible even in the dark. He has boiled his brake fluid. He isn't going anywhere for at least an hour. We give a tap of the air horn, a sympathetic acknowledgement. There is no schadenfreude here. Every heavy-haul driver has had a moment where they smelled their own linings cooking and felt the cold sweat of panic. In the days before hydrodynamic retarders, drivers would drag heavy logs chained to the back of their trucks to act as anchors. Or they would stop every few kilometres to pour water on the hubs, a dangerous practice that could shatter the hot iron instantly. The road is leading us toward the Bagni Vecchi, the old baths. These ancient thermal springs have been in use since the Roman era. Pliny the Elder wrote about them. It is a surreal juxtaposition. Just meters away from our wheels, behind the stone walls of the spa complex, people are likely soaking in warm, mineral-rich waters, relaxing in robes, utterly obliterated from the brutal physics occurring on the asphalt outside. The Romans built their road here to access the waters. We're using it to access the industrial heartland of Lombardy. The infrastructure of leisure and the infrastructure of logistics share the same precarious ledge. We check our own instrument cluster. The coolant temperature needle, which had dropped during the upper descent, is now climbing. It hits 90 degrees, then 95. This seems counterintuitive. We aren't burning fuel, so why is the engine getting hot? This is the trade-off of the modern retarder system. The energy we're scrubbing off the drive shaft has to go somewhere. The retarder churns oil to create resistance, generating massive heat. That heat is transferred into the engine's cooling system via a heat exchanger. Essentially, we are using the engine radiator to cool the brakes, so on a long, hard descent we can actually overheat the engine without ever touching the throttle. Fan on, we mutter. We flip the manual override switch on the dash. The fan clutch locks fully. The roar returns, that jet engine whoosh, sucking massive amounts of air through the radiator stack. We watch the needle stabilize. It holds at 92 degrees. The system is working. We employ the snub braking technique for the next steep section. This is the professional way to manage speed. When the retarder alone isn't enough, we don't ride the pedal. Instead, we let the speed creep up to maybe 35 km/h. Then we apply the service brakes firmly, hard, dropping the speed to 25 km/h in about 3 seconds. Then we release. This gives the drums a chance to breathe, to rotate in the airstream and shed some heat before the next application. It is a cycle. Squeeze, slow, release, cool. Squeeze, slow, release, cool. The road surface here is treacherous in a new way. We're dropping below the tree line again. The vegetation has returned, larches, pines and dense undergrowth. This means organic debris on the road. Pine needles, damp leaves and sap can create a slick, greasy paste that is almost as slippery as ice. The tyres hum a different note as they roll over the debris. We can feel the traction control system twitching, sensing micro-slips as the retarder tries to hold back the drive wheels against the slick surface. We pass a small shrine carved directly into the rock face, illuminated by a solar-powered LED. These capitelli are everywhere in Italy, but on the Stelvio they serve a specific purpose. They are waypoints of survival. In the 19th century, before snowplows, travellers caught in a blizzard would navigate from shrine to shrine, praying they could reach the next one before freezing. Tonight, the shrine marks the beginning of the Vallone, a deep, narrow gorge that funnels us down to the valley floor. The gradient here is deceptive. It looks flatter because the cliffs are so high, they distort the perspective, but the inclinometer on the dash shows we are still descending at an 8% grade. The truck wants to run. The weight of the cargo feels like a hand on our back shoving us forward. The connection between the kingpin and the fifth wheel is under tremendous compression. We're entering a series of short, unlit tunnels. The artificial night inside them is absolute. The headlights bounce off the raw rock walls, creating a strobe effect. The sound is deafening. The engine fan, the tyre noise, the retarder whine, all trapped in a stone tube. It is claustrophobic. For a split second, you lose your sense of speed. Are we doing 30? 50? You have to trust the glowing green numbers on the heads-up display. As we burst out of the last tunnel, the smell of brakes is stronger. It might not be us. It could be the ghost smell lingering from the car ahead, or it could be a heavy truck that went down half an hour ago. The smell hangs in the valley, trapped by the inversion layer. It is the industrial perfume of the Alps. We need to talk about the brake check anxiety. It is a psychological phenomenon specific to mountain drivers. You start to doubt your equipment. You press the pedal, and your brain plays tricks on you. Did that feel softer than the last time? Is the pressure dropping? You glance at the air gauges every 10 seconds. Primary tank, 11 bar. Secondary tank, 11 bar. You're safe. But the doubt whispers in your ear. It keeps you alert. Complacency is what puts you in the ditch. We're passing the turnoff for the Fort Vanini in Oga, another relic of the First World War. It was built to defend the valley from a Swiss invasion that never came. It sits silent now, a museum of paranoia. It's fitting. Mountain driving is a controlled paranoia. You're constantly anticipating the worst-case scenario, the blown tyre, the failed brake line, the deer jumping from the embankment. The lights of Bormio are no longer distant stars, they are distinct street lamps. We can see the grid of the town. We can see the steam rising from the outdoor pools of the thermal baths. We are re-entering civilization. The wild, hostile environment of the summit is behind us. We're returning to the land of coffee shops, roundabouts, and speed limits. But the final descent is often where the mistakes happen. The get there ETS kicks in. You relax too soon. You let the speed drift up to 50 km/h because the road looks wide. But there is one last trap, a final sharp hairpin just before the town limits. It has caught out hundreds of drivers who thought they were home free. We keep the discipline, we hold the gear, we listen to the fan roar, we smell the hot iron, accepting it as part of the job. We respect the fade, we manage the heat. The truck is a thermal battery, and we are slowly draining it. The sign appears. Bormio, town limit. The white rectangle with the black letters, it is the finish line. But we don't cross it at speed. We roll toward it with the dignity of a ship coming into port, heavy, slow, and under command. The transition is tactile before it is visual. Through the seat of the pants, the relentless shoving pressure of the trailer finally relents. For the last hour, the kingpin has been pushing against the jaws of the fifth wheel, a 22-ton hand trying to force us downhill. Now, as the gradient slackens from a punishing 8% to a gentle rolling 2%, the forces neutralize. The truck settles onto its suspension with a heavy metallic sigh. The coupling creates a soft clunk as the trailer momentarily pulls back, reasserting its drag. It is the mechanical equivalent of the machine exhaling. We have officially entered Bormio. The claustrophobia of the Braulio Gorge lifts instantly, replaced by the open, structured geometry of civilization. The towering rock walls that blotted out the stars are gone, swapped for the orderly facades of hotels and the sweeping rooflines of Alpine chalets. The road widens significantly. The white lines at the edge of the lane, which for miles have been flirting with the abyss, now have comfortable shoulders of gravel and grass beyond them. We reach for the retarder stalk and click it to the off position. The low-frequency hum that has vibrated through the floorboards since the summit vanishes. The silence that rushes into the cab is startling. Without the roar of the cooling fan, which we switch back to automatic mode, and the whine of the hydraulic brakes, we are left with just the soft, rhythmic ticking of the tyres on smooth asphalt. It feels like we have just stepped out of a heavy metal concert into a library. We roll into the first roundabout at the edge of town. Roundabouts are the punctuation marks of European driving, and after 48 hairpin turns, navigating a simple circle feels luxuriously easy. We don't need to swing into the oncoming lane. We don't need to check the overhead clearance. We just signal, drift right, and flow through. The Scania feels massive here, a leviathan swimming in a goldfish pond. The cars parked along the Via Milano look toy-like. Bormio is an ancient place, far older than the road we just descended. Since the days of the Roman Empire, this town has been a crucial way station. It sits at the confluence of several valleys, acting as a funnel for trade moving north to Switzerland and Austria. In the Middle Ages, the Magnifica Terra, the magnificent land as it was known, grew rich on the tolls levied on salt and wine passing through. Driving a 40-ton truck through here connects us to that lineage. We are just the modern version of the mule trains, carrying generator parts instead of barrels of Valtellina wine. Speaking of wine, we're now entering the head of the Valtellina Valley. If it were daylight, we would see the terraced vineyards clinging to the lower slopes, defying gravity in their own way. This is the home of the Nebbiolo grape, which produces the dark tannic wines of the region. It is also the land of Bresaola, the air-dried beef that is salty, lean and tough, much like the people who have carved a living out of this granite valley for centuries. As we cruise at a steady 40 kilometers per hour, we perform a mental diagnostic of the vehicle. We need to be careful not to stop too soon. This is a critical technical phase known as the cool-down rolling. Our brake drums are currently sitting at roughly 300 to 400 degrees Celsius. If we were to pull into a parking spot immediately and set the parking brake, the brake shoes would clamp onto the hot drums. As the drums cooled and contracted, they could crack, or the shoes could fuse to the metal. We need to keep the wheels turning for a few more kilometers, letting the airflow wash over the hubs and gently bring the temperature down to a safe level. We pass a gas station, the fluorescent lights reflecting harshly off the damp pavement. A local teenager is filling up a scooter, looking at our rig with mild disinterest. To him, it's just a truck. He has no idea that 40 minutes ago we were grinding through the snow line, battling air density and gravity. That is the strange isolation of the long-haul driver. You pass through extreme experiences alone and then merge back into the mundane world where no one knows where you've been. The streetlights here are warm sodium vapor yellow, casting long soft shadows. The town is asleep. It is the off-season, that quiet interlude between the summer hikers and the winter skiers. The hotels are dark, save for the occasional security light. We catch glimpses of our own reflection in the shop windows, the long dark flank of the trailer gliding past displays of ski boots and designer jackets. We navigate toward the industrial outskirts of the town. We're looking for the designated truck parking area near the sports centre. In these mountain towns, parking a semi is a logistical puzzle. The streets are designed for Fiats, not Scanias. One wrong turn into a residential cul-de-sac could mean hours of backing up with inches to spare. We stick to the main arterial road, the SS38, which now feels like a highway compared to the pass. The air temperature sensor on the dash shows 12 degrees Celsius. It feels tropical compared to the summit. We roll down the window fully. The air is rich, thick and humid. It smells of damp earth, pine resin, and the faint sweet scent of wood smoke from residential chimneys. The engine sounds different here too, deeper, smoother. It is gulping down the oxygen-rich air, the combustion finally optimized again. The turbo whistle has subsided to a barely audible whisper. We cross the bridge over the Adda River. The water is churning below, grey and silty with glacial melt. This water started its journey near the pass we just left, falling as snow, melting into the Braulio and joining the main river. We have beaten the water down the mountain. There is a specific feeling of arrival that settles in the chest when the train flattens out. The adrenaline that has been trickling into the bloodstream for the last 2 hours begins to recede, leaving behind a heavy, pleasant fatigue. The muscles in the forearms, tight from gripping the wheel through the switchbacks, begin to loosen. We shift our posture in the seat, leaning back, driving with one hand at the bottom of the wheel. The combat stance of the mountain is replaced by the cruiser slump of the valley. We spot the blue P sign with the truck silhouette. It points to a gravel lot behind a warehouse complex. This will be our home for the night. We verify the entrance. It looks wide enough. We swing the nose out, claiming the oncoming lane to ensure the trailer clears the gateposts. The tyres crunch onto the gravel. The surface is uneven, and the cab rocks gently from side to side, a boat coming into harbour. We don't just park anywhere. We look for a spot that is perfectly level. We don't want to sleep on a tilt rolling out of the bunk all night. We also check the ground firmness. We don't want the landing gear to sink into soft mud while we sleep, tipping the trailer. The gravel looks packed and solid. We aim for a spot next to another truck, a refrigerated unit from Poland. Its cooling unit is humming quietly, a familiar white noise that aids sleep. We pull forward, then select reverse. The reverse alarm beeps. Beep, 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 echoing off the empty warehouse walls. We back into the slot, watching the mirrors. The trailer moves predictably now, on flat ground. No gravity pulling it sideways, no off-tracking to calculate. It goes exactly where we tell it. We straighten out, lining up parallel to the Polish truck. We set the parking brake. Psst. The sound is final. The truck is secure. But we still don't kill the engine, not yet. We let it idle. The oil needs to circulate a little longer, pulling the last of the heat from the turbo housing. We check the time. It is just past 2 a.m. The drive from Prato allo Stelvio took us nearly 2.5 hours to cover less than 50 kilometres. That is an average speed of 20 kilometres per hour. In the world of logistics, that is abysmal efficiency. In the world of survival, it is a triumph. We sit in the idling cab looking out at the dark silhouette of the mountains we just descended. From down here, they look impossible. A jagged black wall cutting off the northern sky. It seems inconceivable that there is a road up there, let alone that we just drove a 22-ton vehicle across it. The wall of 48 is hidden in the shadows, silent and waiting for the next fool to try it. The lights of Bormio twinkle in the distance, indifferent to our journey. We have transitioned from the sublime to the ordinary. The danger is over. The cargo is safe. The machine is intact. The valley floor is a cradle, and for the first time since we left the Autostrada hours ago, we are truly safe. The gravel lot in Bormio is still, save for the rhythmic chug of our diesel engine and the low-frequency hum of the refrigeration unit on the Polish truck next door. We are parked. The handbrake is set. The wheels are chocked, but the work isn't quite finished. In the trucking world, the transition from driving to living is a distinct procedure, a ritualistic shedding of the machine's demands to make space for the human's needs. We sit in the driver's seat for a moment, hands resting on the steering wheel. The leather is warm from hours of grip. We take a second to just breathe. The vibration of the idling engine is familiar, a soothing massage that travels up the spine. It is strange to think that this vibration has been the only constant in our lives for the last 6 hours, accompanying us from the flatlands of the Adige, up the vertical wall of the Trafoi, and down the dark gorge of the Braulio. Now it is about to cease. We glance at the dashboard clock. It is 2:15. The turbo cool down is complete. The pyrometer needle is buried at the bottom of the gauge, reading a cool 120 degrees Celsius. The oil has done its job, scavenging the heat from the bearings. It is safe to kill the beast. We reach for the key. It's a simple motion, a quarter turn to the left, but the effect is profound. The fuel solenoids cut the supply of diesel, the pistons slow, firing one last lazy compression stroke. Chuff! And then silence. The sudden absence of noise is heavy. It rings in the ears. For a few seconds we can hear the internal fluids of the truck settling, the gurgle of coolant returning to the reservoir, the hiss of the air dryer purging moisture from the brake tanks, and the tick-tick-tick of the cooling metal exhaust manifold contracting in the night air. The machine is going to sleep. Now, we turn our attention to the digital tachograph. the black box that rules our lives. This device, mandatory in the European Union since the mid-20th century, records every second of our activity. Originally, these were analog devices using wax-coated paper discs that a stylus would scratch, a literal record of the drive. Old-school drivers were masters at manipulating the stylus with rubber bands or bent paper clips to hide speeding or extra driving hours. Today, it is a tamper-proof digital brain with a smart card. We press the button to eject our card, then reinsert it to confirm the end of shift. We toggle the mode selector from the cross hammers symbol, work, to the bed symbol, rest. It is a legal declaration. I am off the clock. We unbuckle the seatbelt. It retracts with a sharp zip, hitting the B-pillar. We are free. The first physical act of the evening routine is the cab dump. We locate the remote control for the air suspension, usually hanging on a curly cord near the seat. We press the lower button. Outside, the air bellows deflate with a long, mournful sigh. Pshhh. The entire cab sinks about 10 centimetres, settling firmly onto the chassis stops. This isn't just for style, it stabilises the living space. If we left the suspension inflated, the cab would rock on its airbags every time we rolled over in bed, like sleeping on a waterbed in a storm. Now it is solid. We stand up. In a Scania Highline cab, there is enough headroom to stand fully upright, even for a tall driver. This vertical space is a luxury that changed the industry. In the early days of trucking, the sleeper was often a coffin-sized box behind the seat, or sometimes a coffin bunk located above the driver's head, accessible only by gymnastics. Drivers would sleep in fetal positions, breathing diesel fumes. Today, we're standing in a micro-apartment. We move to the windows. The privacy ritual begins. We pull the heavy pleated curtains from the storage pockets behind the doors. They run on a smooth rail, sliding forward to meet in the middle of the windshield. We overlap them and secure them with Velcro. Instantly, the view of the warehouse and the gravel lot is gone. We're no longer in Bormio. We're in our own private capsule. The world outside ceases to exist. We switch on the interior ambient lighting. We avoid the harsh main dome light. Instead, we use the soft red LED strips that line the storage lockers. It creates a warm, submarine-like atmosphere. It's cozy. It feels safe. Time to shed the armour. We kick off our boots. They're heavy, steel-toed work boots caked with the dust of the road. We place them on the rubber step well, the designated mud room of the truck. We swap them for a pair of soft slippers. The sensation of the carpeted floor through thin soles is a relief to tired feet. We open the kitchen, a drawer under the bunk that houses a slide-out refrigerator. It's small but efficient. We grab a container of pasta salad prepared days ago at home. We don't have a microwave in this unit. Some drivers do, powering them with massive inverters, so a cold meal is standard for a late arrival. We sit on the edge of the bunk, eating slowly, staring at the blank screen of the GPS. There is a unique loneliness to this meal, but it is not a sad loneliness. It is a solitary peace. We think about the journey. We replay the Wall of 48. We remember that moment at turn 20 where the tyres scrubbed, and the moment on the descent where the brake smell wafted in. We analyse the drive, critiquing our own performance. Could have been smoother in Gear 6, entered the tunnel a bit too hot. It is the professional debrief. We wipe the fork clean with a paper towel and stow the container. Hygiene is next. We grab a bottle of water and a toothbrush from the overhead locker. We open the passenger door just a crack. The cool night air rushes in. We brush our teeth, leaning out into the dark, spitting onto the gravel. We look at the truck next to us. The curtains are drawn. The Polish driver is already asleep, likely dreaming of the road to Milan. We're neighbours in a transient village that dissolves every morning. Back inside, we lock the doors. We press the night lock switch, which throws a secondary deadbolt. We also loop the seatbelt through the door handle and buckle it, a poor man's lock that prevents the door from being opened from the outside even if the lock is picked. It's a habit born of sleeping in less friendly places than Bormio, but one we keep regardless. Now, the bed. We clear the passenger seat of the paperwork, the maps, and the snacks that accumulated during the drive. We fold the passenger seat back flat, extending the living space. We pull the release handle for the bunk. The bed folds down from the back wall, a wide, thick mattress with custom sheets. Truck mattresses are a specific genre of bedding. They're often foam, designed to absorb vibration. We fluff the pillows, we pull back the duvet. It looks incredibly inviting. We strip down to a t-shirt and boxers. The cab is still holding the engine's heat, but the temperature will drop rapidly as the night wears on. We reach for the control panel on the bunk wall, the hotel switch. We set the auxiliary heater, the Webasto. This is a small diesel burner mounted under the cab that heats air and circulates it without running the engine. It sips fuel, maybe a litre every 4 hours. We set the thermostat to 18 degrees. We hear the fuel pump start clicking, tick, 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 and then the soft whoosh of warm air from the vents under the bed. It is the heartbeat of the sleeping truck. We check the alarm clock on our phone. Jo 2:45. We need 9 hours of rest to be legal for the next shift. That puts our wake-up call at 11:45 a.m, a luxury, a lie-in. The delivery at the power station in the valley isn't until 1 p.m. We have time. We climb into the bunk. The mattress is firm. We pull the duvet up to our chin. The fabric smells of laundry detergent from home, a sensory anchor to a life that feels very far away right now. We reach up and turn off the ambient lights. The cab plunges into darkness, save for the faint glow of the heater control and the blinking red LED on the dashboard security system. Lying there, we can feel the residual motion of the drive. It's a phantom sensation. The body still believing it is moving, still compensating for the G-forces of the switchbacks. We close our eyes, and behind the lids, we see the road unwinding. We see the white lines, the stone walls, the black void of the drop. But then, the reality of the stillness takes over. The truck is a fortress. It is 22 tons of steel protecting us. We are parked on solid ground. The air suspension is dumped. The brakes are cool. The engine is silent. We listen to the world outside one last time. A dog barks in the distance, miles away down the valley. The wind rustles the tarp on the trailer. The Polish truck's fridge unit cycles off, leaving a profound velvet silence. We roll onto our side, facing the back wall of the cab. We wrap the blanket tighter. The tension in the shoulders finally unspools. The grip strength leaves the hands. The breathing slows. We made it. The pass is behind us. The cargo is delivered to the valley floor. The job is done. The heavy curtain of the night has fully descended, sealing us inside this warm, quiet space where the only deadline is the sunrise. The intense focus of the last few hours, the constant scanning of mirrors, the calculations of air pressure and brake heat, the rhythmic dance of the steering wheel is slowly dissolving, like mist burning off a morning lake. The adrenaline that kept our eyes wide and our reflexes sharp has receded, leaving behind a comfortable, heavy warmth that settles deep into the bones. The mental map of the Stelvio, with its jagged lines and sharp angles, is softening in your mind's eye. Those 48 turns are no longer obstacles to be conquered. They are just a memory, a ribbon of grey fading into the velvet dark behind us. The mountain that loomed so large is now just a silent guardian, its massive stone shoulders blocking out the wind, watching over the valley while we rest. The truck, our faithful companion, is dormant, its steel cold and its breathing still, waiting patiently for the next journey. You can feel the mattress holding you, solid and steady. There is no sway, no vibration, no pull of gravity, just the stillness of the valley floor. The world outside the cab has paused. The concerns of the road, the cargo, and the destination have been parked along with the wheels. There is nothing left to manage, nothing left to monitor. The gauges are dark. The air is still. Let your breathing match the slow, quiet rhythm of the sleeping town outside. Inhale the peace of the arrival. Exhale the tension of the drive. You are safe here. The engine is off. The lights are out. The road will still be there tomorrow, but for now the journey's done. Sweet dreams.